And welcome everybody to our Tuesday coaching show that Clover and I have been doing for maybe half a year already. It seems like we've been doing this for a few months. So each month, each Tuesday morning, we get together and we talk about strategies and issues that we have as content creators. I'm working on a crowdfunding project right now, so I thought this week take a break from some of the. We were doing Shot Show for a long time, and then we talked about some other facets of content creation. So I figured let's talk about fundraising, crowdfunding, and the platforms that are out there for that versus other options. There's lots of versions of raising money out there. So each Tuesday, get together with Clover Tech, who runs the GunTuber Academy. We do it on the both channels, so we're simulcasting right now on 3 different YouTube channels. Wherever you're joining us from, feel free to say hey. Let us know what channel you're on. Say what state you're in if you want. Let us know any questions you might have. Today, this topic or the general topic for today is crowdfunding, funding your projects, and the different crowdfunding options. With that, we'll let Clover take it for a bit, and we'll get started.
Yeah, good to be here. I don't know, necessarily what all I can add. I know that, my definition of crowdfunding might be a little bit different than yours, and certainly you've used a lot of options for crowdfunding that I haven't. So, should be a good conversation.
Right on. So when we think about crowdfunding, let me start off with asking you, since we're not the same age, you're younger than me, I think, but we're old compared to a lot of people that are using the internet around
All right.
today. Um, Especially people using the internet like we're using it seems to be more of a trending younger type of thing. So what year was it that you learned about crowdfunding, and what types of crowdfunding were you first introduced to, if that's possible to know? I mean, if
I
that's
don't know. I mean, it depends on the definition of crowdfunding, and I hate to go down that road, right? But it's kind of like when you talk about, well, I'm a content creator. Well, are you a content creator, or are you a YouTuber, or are you a podcaster, or are you an influencer, or like, what do you call certain things, right? And so we hear things called crowdfunding that may not be necessarily crowdfunding. Once I sit and think about it, is like, is it crowdfunding or is it fan funding, right? Like there could be, you could split that off potentially. So um, crowdfunding I view as more of a, you're potentially getting people that have no interest in your projects as much as they have interest in the result of whatever that project might be. For example, you're an author and you quote unquote crowdfund a book, and the the people that are helping with that could freaking care less about you and who you are and what you think, right? They just want that new book series or whatever it is to, to exist. Um, and that's a lot different than, okay, I'm an author, but I got a huge fan base. People enjoy me, and I've got a good following, and people engage with me, and so regardless of whether I put the book out or not, like I just need a mechanism, right? Something for them to uh, be able to contribute and help out with, right? Like the chicken and the egg, which comes first, right? The um, the want to help out in this sense, I'm going to use the word creator as a general term, but which comes first, the want to help a creator, really, no matter what the project is, or um, you know the want to be involved with the project regardless of the creator. And I know that was kind of confusing, but
well, it was a question out of nowhere in the morning, and I don't even know if you knew what the topic was because I just put the show together last night. So, um, but the question was, when did you first become aware of it? We're talking crowdfunding. think if you look at it from the crowd part of it, and you get like you said with the fan part of it, and you think of how we're mainly talking to content creators, then it becomes a fundraising type of thing. But I guess that's where I think of it when I think of the origins of crowdfunding. I grew up in scouts and in school, and I wasn't in like little league sports, but I think they do that kind of stuff too. But there's fundraising. So when you've got a project or something that a lot of times with this kid stuff, it's tradition. People have done it for years, so people in the neighborhoods and the communities understand the crowd, the fundraising parts of it.
Right.
And then it becomes a vector to literally pay for stuff. But there's other ways to pay for stuff. You could easily go out and have a store in town, or the parents get together and do it amongst themselves. But instead, when they do it as a fundraising thing where they involve the kids, it gives the kids some, what's the word? Like some, there's a word, I can't think of it, but like an investment in their project. Like the kids are investing, they're putting their time in, they're learning what it's like to put time into something and then understand the payoffs, learn the payoffs. There's no, this isn't fake. This is, you could put a lot of effort into something and still have it fail. And that's one of those things that you have to life lesson, you have to learn, and that preparation can set yourself up for better success. So I'm pretty sure they involve kids in fundraising of kids groups. And that's what I'm most familiar with, is the kids groups, because they want to offer that skill building opportunity. And that's where I kind of became aware of fundraising. Now, there was fundraisers at school, and that was more of like the obligation thing, like go home and tell your parents it's time to pay for this. And it was more of like, we were just the vector who, just gave the parents an additional school tax, essentially, just that they involved us so that it was harder for the parents to say no or something. Or maybe it was slightly more optional, right? Because they could decide if they were going to do it or not. But as the kids and scouts and doing the stuff, we were usually raising money for like an event. At least our troop, each troop is different out there. And it's one of the fun things about scouts is there's some guides, but you can really play with it yourself. And I know there's troops that maybe they're near the water. They're going to do things with boats and fishing and sailing, where troops that are near the desert or the mountains are going to do hiking or other things. So we would go on a big trip each year, and our fundraising efforts throughout the year all went into pools or funds to fundraise for that. And we'd always have a kid or two that needed help just getting there. And then we had the fees for the stuff. We had the travel expenses. And it helped us budget. It helped us learn that a project just doesn't exist out of thin air. Somebody doesn't blink their eyes and we just go on a vacation. We had to plan for it. We prepped for it. We created our food. We decided to prep like beef jerky instead of buying beef jerky to save money. When you talk about a bunch of kids for a week, it's a lot of beef jerky. And then we saved a lot of money making it versus buying it. And it was a decision we made. So I can see crowdfunding being a vector for a lot of growth and development. And I guess I think of crowdfunding from those roots of just fundraising, but with, like Clover was saying, more focused on a project or a channel or a person or an effort. Okay, with that being said, we got a bunch of people joining us live. We do this live because we do appreciate the interactive nature of the internet. So we'll say hey to people. Jeff is out there from Gear Report. They've got quite a few channels on YouTube for the different facets of the Gear Report project. It's gear-report.com. And they've got Guitar Gear Report and some others that usually they'll jump around. So they're on the Guitar Gear Report channel today. And then 500 Magnum is out there. Good morning. Wesley is also out there. If you're out there, we won't know it unless you type something in here. So again, feel free to let us know where you're at and what your questions are, what your opinions are, what your statements or confusion might be about crowdfunding. And then we do have a point, I guess, from Jeff saying, state of confusion, crowdfunding baffles me. Okay, so I don't think there's anything else, but if there's anything else about crowdfunding, there's Susan, welcome, good morning. I kind of riffed on the fundraising part of it, and when we're talking about crowdfunding, like what Clover was saying, we need to get something accomplished or someone wants to raise some funds. I think the crowdfunding for me at least, I think I first became familiar with the concept of Kickstarter. It must have been when Kickstarter started. And then it must have been a few years later or some time later that I realized that Kickstarter wasn't just for them or for
Mm-hmm.
crazy giant internet technical things, but for lots of different things. And somewhere in there, I started to use it, and I crowdfunded. I think one of the first giant projects or large projects was the deck of cards, was the AK-47 deck of cards, and I started using the Kickstarter platform. Then I've also used the Indiegogo. Now there's some other platforms out there in GiveSendGo. What was the one that everybody used right before that? GoFundMe, and uh, there's probably many more. And then there's other possibilities. What I really like about the crowdfunding, just to give us another vector to go off on here, and again, feel free to help take the show in a direction. We answer questions, we respond to the live comments out there. So if you're joining us live, feel free to be part of that. But the crowdfunding projects, as opposed to let's raise some funds for XYZ, like, hey, we're going to raise funds for XYZ, and all the funds raised will go to that project or that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a bunch of people throw $5 in, and then $10,000 is raised, $5,000, $500, some amount of money is raised. Question mark, how much money was really sent in versus how much money was said. Was it really $500 or was it $554 or something, right? Like, there's always that trust and that whatever, that situation, I guess, when you have just a fundraising where you're going to have people throw in a bunch of money or products or something.
Right.
Now, what I like about the systems is they give you some functionality, and I'm a big fan of the internet. I'm a big fan of people working together, and I'm a big fan of seeing things happen as a group, or seeing a bunch of effort, a bunch of people lean into stuff and accomplish great things. And that's what crowdfunding is for. So what I really like about the platforms, and probably the reason I use them, and I don't always succeed. I've had plenty, probably way over 40 projects by now, and they don't all succeed. But they give you transparency. They give you a structure where there's a goal, and then people who participate are given a number. They're part of it. They're in the system. There's tracking. Now, there is still a possibility that someone could say, hey, I'm raising funds for XYZ, and then they raise a bunch of funds and then they book town. It can still happen. This is the world, and it is possible for criminals to be criminals, or for unfortunate things to happen, for people at inopportune times. So intended and unintended stuff can happen, and it can still fail. But for the most part, what you've got is a transparency. If there was 36 people participating, right, they don't have to necessarily have a name associated, but you're going to see, here's a $5 contribution, here's a $50 contribution. And you're not going to see people's names or private info, of course, but you're going to see that 2 more participations happen today. And I think that that's important for not just the people who may not be convinced, or who might be concerned about the legitimacy or the routing of the funds, or how much of the funds are going to be used for the goal or something like that. But it's also just useful for the other side of it, the analytics side. So this is my 37th project. One of my goals this week, in the last week of this 37th project, is to remind people from the prior projects that we've got a project going. Not to bug them, but to tap them on the shoulder and go, hey, in their mailbox, their email box, hey, we have another project. If you like the last one, you might be interested in this one too. And then you have a pool of people to pull from, or to reach to, that may be interested in participating because they've seen your successes before, or they appreciate what your project is doing, or what your content is about. Mm-hmm. I need to step away for a second, so I'm gonna let Clover take over. Feel free to leave some questions here, but if you don't mind, I'm gonna be right back in a second.
Yeah, I'm still hung up on, and I'll rip on that a little bit, but I'm still hung up on the whole idea. We hear crowdfunding and we hear fan funding, and I guess essentially, I mean, the best definition of crowdfunding that I can give is that, you've got a couple of different ways to go about funding a project, right, or fundraising. You've obviously got the option, for a sponsored type situation, where one entity or one person kicks in, the entire amount needed to make that project happen. You've also got venture capitalism, which is, typically larger firms and stuff like that. So the whole idea of crowdfunding is smaller monetary increments, right? Building up, multiple smaller increments, building up to be able to fund that cause. And so I guess in a way, uh, as I've been kind of wrestling with that, fan funding is, I guess, an element of crowdfunding, right? Um, yeah, what G was saying there earlier about, it's not any different if you've ever been in band or you've ever been in Cub Scouts or you've ever been in 4-H or if you've ever been in that side of things. It's just moving it into the digital age, I think, is all. But I would also agree. I mean, I've never used GoFundMe, Indiegogo, or Kickstarter, and I've never felt that I've had the need to use any of those because I was able to get done what I need to get done without having to jump over into that. Now that being said, I've obviously participated in things um, that GWebs has set up and had going on some of those platforms. So I do have a little experience with how they work, and the digital age is nice because it gives everybody a chance to keep track. I will. Um, I don't know if Patreon still has it or not, but as we're talking about this cross pollination between crowdfunding and or I am anyway between crowdfunding and fan funding, Patreon used to have, and I've seen channels utilize the feature before, but now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't seen that feature in some time, and so I'm thinking maybe it was underused and they pulled it, which would be horrible because I think for some creators it was nice. But Patreon used to have a feature, and if you're not familiar with Patreon, that's where folks can go and kick in a buck, $5, $10 a month, whatever, to the creators that are over there on that platform. But they used to have a feature called goals, and it was really interesting. You could set the goals up there. It could be, some equipment you wanted to purchase or a piece of content that maybe required travel or whatever the case may be that you wanted to produce, whatever that goal was. And then you could set it up a couple different ways that, you needed this many number of patrons, right? This many members to make it happen, or you needed this much money to make it happen. So, um, even I guess I was using that example to say that even things that platforms or mechanisms that I consider more on the fan funding side than crowdfunding still see the value and utilize those mechanisms of crowdfunding.
So yeah, Patreon is another version that's more of consistent or more of a periodic, I guess. There's a subscription situation to it, and as opposed to the other platforms that are more project based or one time. And Kickstarter is literally designed, for the venture capital idea of we need some money to get this project started, and then it'll work, and then we can pay you all back, type of thing, or then we can grow, or then we start the engine and it starts to work. So let's see. So we've got the need of paying for things, and we've got the you were kind of comparing it to other methods of fundraising, or not fundraising, but other methods of paying for a project, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, more or less. I was doing it like what I was talking about was like venture capitalism, which is venture capitalism is typically like one big donor, one big source of the money, right?
Well, no,
Uh,
but that's the thing. Venture capital, sometimes there's one, and that would be like the easy way to do it because then you have one person to deal with. But often it's a like a capital fund. So it's a bunch of people that are being,
It's a bunch of people, but it's
together.
still one fund,
But
right?
but that's very rare still, because most of the time you're going to have your initial run, and then you're going to have multiple people just because of the timing. But you're also almost always going to have multiple people just because there's not wealthy enough people that see the vision to typically fund something unless it's a very tiny project. So just from my experience doing technical things, you almost always have maybe one
Well, I may have the
backer that you're going to use is like, hey, look who's on board. This so and so person with some prestige or with some reputation is on board, but there's really like 8 people on board making it happen because there's usually so many costs involved. So
well,
it kind of depends on
okay.
the project and the significance of
Yeah,
the
I
size.
think I got off on not just using the wrong terminology or something to get my point across. My point was, there's a big difference between um, crowdfunding is 1,000 people giving $5 as opposed to one person giving $5,000,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? And so um, with that comes a community aspect to the project. With that can also come potentially less hassles when it comes to control, right? Like if one person, one entity, one company was funding whatever the project was, you know, would that person want certain stipulations or things done a certain way? And then because it's just that one person funding the project, what would you be likely to concede to that, which at the end of the day you know, could become a detriment to the project, right? Potentially, or something like that. Like, oh, I'm giving you all this money, and I want you to do X, Y, and Z, and you're sitting there going, well, Z is not optimal, right?
Well, let's use an example of your yellow shoes that you're so happy about. So yellow shoes wants to come along and sponsor your project, and let's say the project is an event. You're going to be going somewhere and you're going to be doing something, and there's a reason why. There's going to be helping somebody. You're going to be raising awareness of something. You're going to be solving a problem, right? You're going to be doing something useful. Yellow shoes comes along and says, "I want to be involved." Well, if it's an ice skating event, there might be some issue because you can't get yellow ice skates and you got yellow shoes. Kind of figured that, maybe they thought you're going to wear yellow shoes. Maybe you're going hiking and now yellow shoes ain't appropriate, but maybe you can paint your hiking boots yellow or something, right? Like, and that's one of those things I think you're talking about. Yellow shoes sponsors it. Well, you may just take off the table blue shoes being involved. Now, blue shoes might have been like, hey, I don't care. Or it might have been like, hey, I wanted to really put a lot of money into this. But I guess if you want $1,000 from yellow shoes, you won't want my $10,000. So you definitely have that issue. Neither one of them is perfect, and that can be, well, that's getting into funding. Period. We're talking crowdfunding. So getting back to that idea, when you say 1,000 people throwing $5 in, so we have the community aspect, and we'll definitely talk about that. What are we here to do? Are we here to reach people, or are we here to sell people stuff? Are we here to raise awareness of something, or are we here to get famous and rich? Right? There's all these reasons are valid, and all these reasons are in the mix. People have different volume levels on each one of their mixers for these different aspects and more. Right? So what does crowdfunding accomplish versus having other type of income for your project? The idea that there's 1,000 people with $5 invested, you're going to do a hike. You're going to do a hike from down south to up north, and it's going to be significant. You're going to need some participation with other people because there's no way you can afford to do this. You can't take time off work. A lot of people like everything you do, so they're going to definitely be part of this. Let's raise some funds. So you raise $5,000 to do this hike. You set off, but then you get on a skateboard and somebody's like, dang it, I hate skateboards, and I didn't know he was going to take a skateboard, and this is I'm upset with this. They take their $5 and they go home. They never come back. You got their $5, but you never see them again. That's a lot different than you got yellow shoes. They sponsor the $5,000 hike, and you immediately put on brown hiking boots and leave your yellow shoes at home, and they never talk to you again. Throw that one out there. There's that element of crowdfunding that it's really hard to offend 5,000 people. Wait, 1,000 people for that $5,000 than it is to mess up the one relationship with a $5,000 thing. Even if you just went to the wrong destination. Oh, I thought he was going to go up that peak instead of that valley.
Yeah, right. Well, I think that's where you were talking about earlier. I mean, anytime you do crowdfunding, it's important enough. And I know this because of the pitches and the proposals and the things I've been doing since, during shot and then after. It's a daily thing. And, you know, you have to put a simplified version out there to not overwhelm people, whether you're talking the individual $5 person or the big, funded all $5,000 person. It really doesn't matter. Strategy is going to be almost the same way. You've got to put it out there, what the project is, what you're going for, what the goals are, that sort of stuff. You got to put all that out there in a fairly simple way, in a simplified way. But you also have to have it broken down into the particulars too. You brought up the word transparency earlier, for transparency's sake, if nothing else, and try to nail down, exactly what all is involved and going on with this project. So, you get somebody. Let's take the big donor issue or big donor side of it. They look at it and they go, "Oh, okay, it's the short blurb, right? It's the elevator speech thing." They look at that and go, "Oh, okay, this is interesting. We want to know more." Then they go through the details. And your example of big yellow shoes, right? They go, "Oh, he's going to be wearing some blue shoes and green shoes too. We don't like this. We're out." Right? Um, or they look and they go, "Oh, it's just yellow shoes. Cool. Yeah, we're in. Here's the check." Right? Um, Much different situation, like you're saying, when you've got more people at a lower denomination. With that lower denomination, a lot of times becomes less expectation. And then when you insert the fan component, and I'm using that word, and I don't like using that word because I don't like content creators and whatever that are put on pedestals. But when you've got that component, I hear this all the time. I've done polls, I've studied this. A lot of the people that kick in on Patreon or YouTube channel memberships or anything like that, they could care less what they get out of it. They just want to see what they're concerned with is the longevity of your channel and you to continue with the goals of your channel, not anything extra, and progressing that ball forward. Like that's what they're vested in. Whether they get trinkets or, you end up diversifying into something else and all, they could care less for the most part. So, but you are going to have, I can see what you're saying. You are going to have where, you've got that elevator speech. A lot of people are going to come in just because of that, and nobody digs any deeper. They go, "Oh, we like this," right? But there will be a few that dig a little deeper, and they go, your analogy, "Oh man, he's going to use a skateboard. I hate skateboards. I'm out," right? But you're talking about losing $5 as opposed to the whole thing because somebody doesn't like what you're doing. So there's definitely those trade-offs, and that's kind of what I was getting at. I don't remember if I said anything about it or not, but with the platforms that you're talking about that are available, be it the GoFundMe's, the Indiegogos, the Kickstarters, Patreon to an extent, and some other things, is the transparency that um, it provides, because everything is, except for sensitive data, of course, everything, personal information, I should say, everything is right there in your face. And then it gives analytics on the back end too. A lot of these, from what I've seen, it will show how many people looked at this but didn't do anything, right? Or how many are on certain tiers, or how many, initially came in and looked at one tier, or, you know, all the different data that you can look at, and that can kind of give you an idea. Well, maybe, maybe on the next one, maybe I change my buy-in, right? Maybe the package, the tiers on the packages to help with support. Maybe I structure those a little different, or whatever the case may be.
So we've got a poll going on the Gun Website's YouTube channel. I put a link in there for anybody that's watching on one of the 3 channels that we're simulcasting on. Feel free to leave comments wherever you are. You can super chat. Can you super chat on GunTuber Academy?
You cannot. No.
You don't got your 1,000, or you don't got your 4,000, or you don't got your 1,000 subs?
I don't have either one.
Oh, okay. But you haven't worked on it yet. So anyway, you can super chat on the Gear Webs or on the Daily Gun Show channel if you really want. No obligation, of course. Is that crowdfunding ? But I really put the poll on the big channel just because that's the only one I'm logged into right now. So if you want to jump over there, we got 3 votes. Some people, well, we got the question is, how interested are you in crowdfunding? So the people that are here live watching the show as we're broadcasting can participate in this. How interested are you in crowdfunding? The replies are very. I have already crowdfunded. The next one is somewhat. I'd like to try. Then the third one is not interested or disinterested. I just don't care. And then the last one is I hate everything. So feel free to vote over there. It looks like so far of the votes, overwhelmingly people have already crowdfunded. So question mark, I'm assuming that's Patreon, but it might be other things. Or maybe they're thinking of their participation in supporting folks with through crowdfunding.
I see crowdfunding as having a specific target or goal. So like it's more specific and niche down than just, oh, let's use let's use Tony Simon, right? 2A40. Let's use that example, right? So Tony speaks at rallies. Tony goes to trade shows. Tony does the podcast. Tony does the diversity shoots, right? So what I see is I see crowdfunding differently. Like, again, the difference between fan funding and crowdfunding, right? Fan funding would be, I'm throwing Tony $20 a month, and whatever projects he uses it on, I don't really care, right? Like, I'm throwing it to see Tony succeed with whatever the projects is, right? And crowdfunding being, I'm throwing Tony $20 a month to go toward diversity shoot, to buy a pizza or whatever, right? Like a specific thing. Like, here it is. Here's the money. It's a specific thing that you're doing. Go with it. And so I see that as a difference. So in that, your question about super chats being crowdfunding, I wouldn't say that's necessarily crowdfunding. It's certainly crowdfunding adjacent. And that's why we started off me struggling. I've always struggled with the difference between fan funding and crowdfunding.
Okay, so we'll hit that one. Then there's, thinking about, as you were saying that, I guess my mind wandered to the big difference between Patreon, and that's I think the direction I thought you were going to go. The big difference between Patreon and like a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo, 3 different platforms that are designed to let people contribute a little. A lot of people contribute a little to accomplish a lot. And the big difference between them is that there's a subscription model or the subscription essence and the one-time project or the let's get a goal accomplished type of project. Now there used to be, they started out being a venture capitalist type of thing, like either let's get this play that no one asked for made, right? Because y'all think it's important, or let's get this product made, this little Bluetooth thing or this little Firewire gizmo, because no company has decided it's worth the investment. So we've got a couple of clever people. Everybody throws in $50 for one. A couple of people buy the T-shirt, and we got this thing made. You get a couple of books written. You get, the things like that, little projects going, and something accomplished. Where the Patreon is, I'm going to be writing this comic. So every episode, you throw us $10. It's like you're subscribing to the comic. Or I'm a content creator on the YouTube or a podcast, and every episode, I don't know, most people I think do Patreon the monthly now, but it started out being, and I think you can still set it up to be per project. So it's like $2 per video or $5 per chapter or something like that.
Locals is that way. We've talked about that, where you can live stream over there on Locals, and it costs, you set X number of dollars to be able to join the live stream.
And I'm thinking of playing with that a little bit. Not so much for like the peep show thing, but just to like, hey, let's raise some funds and let's have a get together. Sort of like think of the what's that show with the kids back in the day, and they'd have like, hey, we're having a play, it's 5 cents because we're trying to raise funds to get the little girl a new book or whatever it was, so that kind of concept. Like, we're going to have a special show on Friday, it's $5 to get in, and that's raising funds for XYZ, right? Let's get Tony another trip that he needs to get to wherever, like he wants to go to Nebraska, some other states. Let's have a show that's $5 a head to sit there, and It's nothing more than a factor, a vector.
Man, that's a cool concept.
Yeah, of
That you're not
course.
to get off on too big of a tangent, but it's almost like a plate dinner, right? Like you see the fancy plate
Yeah,
dinners, like, oh, it's
spaghetti dinner.
$10,000
Yeah.
a plate to go, or
You
a
don't care
spaghetti dinner.
about the
Sure, I get it.
spaghetti. Yeah,
I
some
get it,
people are
but
just
it's
like,
even
yeah, I'm not gonna
but
show up.
but
Like, give
how
me a
many
dinner.
people go to a black tie, event that's skimpy portion bougie food on a plate for 10 grand? They're not going for the food, right?
Well,
They're
some of them are going
that's
for the
just
food because
well,
there's
some
that
of them are.
prestige, there's
Yeah,
that happening. But yeah, you're
that's
not going
true.
because the food is so much specialer than the carrot you got at the dollar store. Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's not just about the food, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Well, you're not
Um,
going to eat dinner. You're going
but
there
what I'm
because you're
getting
eating
at
dinner in
is
that room with those people. Yeah.
the potential to create a situation where you're having those black tie dinners, but virtually and digitally, right? The other thing I was thinking about is when we start talking about, this show in particular, and the shows where we talk nerdy and getting into the nuts and bolts, we were talking about like the training session type stuff, right? That could be a mechanism where it's like, look, if we're going to spend time on you and specifically your training and your projects and what you're doing, which let's be honest, right? To really provide somebody with the type of help um, that is most beneficial, that's what you've got to do. You've got to spend that almost that one-on-one time getting really specific with the person and their goals and their projects and their channel. Um, potentially a mechanism for that as well. Hey, we're going to go live for an hour, but it's $10 for that hour. But with that $10, you're going to get specialized attention. Why? Because we're not going to have 20 or 30 people or whatever in there, most likely, for $10. We're only going to have those people that are willing to drop that $10 bill to get specific information and auditing or whatever it might be, right, on their channel or their projects.
Crowdfunding. Playing around with it and getting things accomplished is part of cutting new ground and part of being a healthy channel. Just throwing that out there as a palate cleanser as I go through and click some of my uh, points that I was trying to make here and I wasn't saving them. So we're 38 minutes in. We're going to try to keep it at 90 minutes today. And nobody's really asking too many questions, so feel free to start asking questions. I feel like I'm missing some stuff, so whenever Clover's talking again, I'll go look for him. So super chats versus projects. People don't pay attention because you're just not paying attention. But when you watch somebody's live stream and it's $2, $5, $2, $7.62, $5, $7, $2, $10, $50, $2, and now you watch somebody who's super popular, and it's like boom, 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 with those super chats. Again, there's the hey, throw the pan. What's that called? The plate around. I don't know what it's called in church. The
The offering plate.
the
Yeah.
plate. Pass that around, and for the most part, people are all just contributing, and at the end, nobody cares because it's all going to a good cause. But there's a difference between the super chat. Hey, everybody just throw $5. Everybody just tip. Everybody just tip. Everybody just tip. How much is the waitress going homework at the end of the night? Who knows? Right?
Well,
Some
and
nights
that's
it's nothing. Some nights it's a shit ton of money. Well,
that's
with a
true.
project, hey, I need to make $7,000. I'm not screwing around. I'm not trying to harvest money out
Well,
of my audience every night. I'm not trying to do this on the down low so nobody pays attention, but let's have a lot of fun with these super chats because that can be, just sit there and think about it as an exercise. 2, 5, 7, 12, 30, that's $50, $100 in an afternoon. And if it's a massive chat, it's thousands, it's real money. And now that's happening. And now let's say you're on both sides of this. You're just sitting here watching it and you're like, that's a lot of money in the industry that's just being casually thrown around. What if you organize that? And what if you accomplish something with it? And now think of it as a content creator. Oh, I got this sloppy amount of $100 coming in, and all I did was fuck off. All I did was screw off. All I did was hype up the news of the day. All I did is say my property, my rights. I got a bunch of people all jazzed up who are going to be, I gave them the salty treat. I gave them the unnourishing food. They came in, they got their aggression out. They got their frustration out. They got to say, yeah, I'm right about that. They threw $5 at me. No harm, no foul. Hundreds of dollars coming in, thousands of dollars a month. And what are you going to do? Are you going to be able to say, hey, I'm going to do something with structure. I'm going to do something of value and create that. Or are you going to pander to that trickle of money? You're going to pander to that trickle of money, and you're going to get more of those kind of shows. So when you do a project that says, I'm going to accomplish something, here's how much it's going to cost. Now people can say, okay, I'm going to be a part of that. And here's a brick in the wall. When it's accomplished, here's a tower that exists, and everybody can say, I have a name on that brick on that wall.
Yeah.
I put in that foundation. I put in the roof on that. I was part of the garage on that thing. The garage has this person's name on it. It exists. Now, if that garage is going to fall apart in 10 years, if that garage gets used as a fire department and it saves countless things, if it turns into a bullshit, who knows? But you've created something. And what you're doing is you're encouraging content that has direction and that has value, that creates. And we got the money on the table. Are we trying to create audiences that just do the lazy? Here's another salty treat. This one's got bacon flavor. Like, oh, this one's a barbecue flavor. And apologize to Woods and to barbecue who took offense to that, that example. But you know what I'm saying? Like, do you pander to what's easy and the just kind of foster that trickle, or are you setting up kindling to start a fire to cook something? I'll shut up. So that's.
Oh, I was just gonna say the super chat thing. I mean, how many times have we seen? Because you're right, for super chat, what I see mostly, and it's across YouTube, the entire spectrum of YouTube, not just we're not just talking gun tubers in this sense, but most of it is just tip jar, right? Just throwing money at a creator, whatever, right? It gets your thing seen. It is
it's throwing a dollar bill in the
minor
waistline of the stripper or the waitress at the
right,
titty bar
yeah.
while there's a party going on.
However, how many times have we been a part of live streams that were set up with the intent of trying to drive super chats to accomplish a goal of whatever it might be? And how many times do you see creators, I can think of Yankee and Ghost being two, that will dedicate super chats to a certain thing, to a certain common thing, right?
Yeah, well, super chats, you can turn that on in YouTube. If somebody really wanted to, they could flip a switch on their monetization, and everything that they make will go to a charity instead of their PayPal. And if there was a switch on YouTube that could say, hey, we're tallying for today, and now there's a thing on the screen, just like I'm showing up my chat on the screen. If there was a little, what do you call that, a tally that said the first super chat is 20, the second super chat is 5, now it's at 25, it tallies up, and at the end of the night, everybody can go, we just raised $200, right? So there's that $200 check that gets passed off. I hear you. But what happens with super chats is, hey, everybody throws $5. It's, again, throw your money into the strippers or into the waitress's jar while you're buying beers all night. We'll entertain you. And at the end of the night, we're going to take all the money out of them jars, and no worries. We're going to make sure all that goes. If it's a scrupulous person, it is all going to the thing, and they're probably paying the fees on top of it. But how often do you know that? Well, with a Patreon, with a Kickstarter, with a Indiegogo, well, maybe not so much with a Patreon because you can toggle that on and off. But with a Kickstarter and Indiegogo, if they're accomplished. And then, okay, you raised $10,000 for a video camera. What did you do with that channel?
Or if it didn't accomplish is another thing. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, this person didn't get any support at all. Like, isn't that sad? And now you can also say this community has no value for this. And that's significant. That's adding to the communicate. That's adding to it's participating in the community as opposed to just, I don't want to say exploiting, but just going along with the flow because there's money to be made with going along with the flow. And you don't have to do stuff with an interest, but hopefully the people that are watching this are doing stuff with an interest. And I want them to think that this isn't a tip jar that you'll sometimes get some money and sometimes you won't. Go on with your life. So there's a super powerful tool here. Super powerful tool. With 37 projects under my belt, that isn't just throwing a hat out there and doing a dance and trying to desperately dance differently in front of different crowds. That's establishing relationships with people who come back and support projects because we're accomplishing things. We're going up the rung of a ladder. We're heading up a hill in a direction. So these things are super powerful, and you can follow recipes to pander to giant audiences, or you can build, you can plan, and you can again, build a tower. And then once you've got that tower or that building, you can start using that building for things, and that might be to build the next building or help someone build their building. That's even another aspect to it. Bunch of super chats coming in. How structured is that? Bunch of super chats coming in. Yeah, you might raise a bunch of money for some project, and it might be something we're going to plan. Hey, this month we're going to raise money for this, and all the super chats are going to this. At the end of the month, you do try to be as transparent as possible. How many people flip open their YouTube? Want to see me start flipping open my YouTube? It's all zeros. I'll show you my YouTube. I can show you when it was $200 a month. Like, I don't make that much money on it. Most people aren't going to flip it over and show you how much super chat money they're making because it's embarrassing. So again, you can do that and you can make that embarrassing money, and it's your right as a capitalist. Go nuts. But what I'm saying is, if you're really trying to accomplish something with your projects and your channels, what you're creating with Patreon and with Indiegogo and with Kickstarter is an alumni. You're creating an email. You have a physical address. You're sending something to people. You're reaching out and having that interaction. But now you have their email. Now you can be a jerk with that and spam them, and they're going to ignore you. Or when you do other things, you can reach out to people that have supported you in the past, and you can say, tap them on or knock on the door and say, hey, just to let you know, we are doing this again. And if you'd like to be a part of it, please keep it in mind. And maybe, and again, you're reaching to individuals now. You're reaching to people that understand what you're doing, and you're not just having a great party. What you're doing is accomplishing something. You're on that hike because you're trying to make awareness for, the trail and the upkeep of the trail, or the kind of indigenous, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're trying to do something, and that's not going to matter to most people, but it's going to matter a lot to the people that care about that trail. And if we're trying to build projects and help people build audiences that care about their projects, then that's why I wanted to bring up crowdfunding isn't just a hat that you put out there and you have to think about a fancy way to dance. There's certainly going to be people that suggest that strategy, because that is the typical strategy. Think of it as a tip jar. Think of it as the hat. Now you start dancing. You start doing whatever it is the crowd wants. Bring a bunch of music instruments and bring some fancy hats or something and start doing it. That is a strategy, but that's not the only strategy. I'm going to quit preaching and let Clover interject here, and then I've got some more starred things before we go too much into directions here. Or no observation.
Yeah, I don't think I have a lot to add to what you said.
So just to expand on, perks are a two-way street with a super chat, and I'm bitching at super chats because they just bug me. People don't even pay attention, and that's the other thing is, if you are at the end of the month and you go, I can just imagine somebody who's super chatting at the end of the month. They're like, $147 in super chats. Dang. All right, well, I don't know. Money's money, and you're a capitalist. Do whatever you want with your money. It's just, to me, I'm thinking that's a lot of money left on the table, right? And if you're trying to accomplish something and trying to get things done, I want to see people that are accomplish. I want to see Tony not have to worry about, I won't get into the hotel he was at, right? I seen the hotel. I went up there. So, you know what I'm saying? I'd just like to see things be a little bit more efficient or effective.
Yeah.
So sorry, when I think about, I'm bitching about super chats, but I could just as easily bitch about
look at the
Patreon channels.
Look at the 30% that's going to come off right off the top, right?
Like, I hear you, and I'm super cheap, but I'll also say it's YouTube. You know what I'm saying? It's YouTube. So
it's easy. That's the whole thing with super chat.
Yeah,
super chat is easy.
It is super nice. Yeah,
it can almost be an impulse thing for somebody. All you really have to do is get somebody, just resonate with them, for just a second, and then they, impulse buy and hit the super chat or whatever. One of the things I've seen, and I haven't seen a whole lot of gun channels that just clean up, but there are definitely channels on YouTube that do it. And one of the things I see with that is and oftentimes I wonder if it's orchestrated, but super chats have become kind of a normal thing, to the extent that when somebody super chats, everybody else doesn't see that as big of a deal anymore.
It's normalized,
unless it's a big number. And I see this on other channels where somebody will drop $100 super chat, and then all of a sudden there's a flurry of $5 and $1 and other stuff like after that $100. So, It's just an interesting
And it's the
dynamic that I've
culture.
seen.
It's the culture, and it's the audience, and it's the if they're having a good time, it's a party, you know. And if it's a party and the waitresses
Yeah,
are going to make a bunch
yeah,
of money, and if it's a shitty party where people are getting lectured at, the audience, the
right.
waitresses are going to go home and never want to be waitresses of that party again. It's the nature of community and whatnot. So, you know, again, you can lean into what's easy, or you can do things with for a reason. So getting back to perks are a two-way street. Uh, Super chats, Patreon for the most part. You know, just other things that are out there, just, you know, throwing people a tip, throwing them a thank you. It's fine. Go for it. Like I say, it's capitalism. I'm not bitching about this stuff. I'm just saying there's a difference as a person who's creating, as somebody who's got something you're trying to accomplish. Do you want to be able to talk to that person again, or do you just want to grab the $5 and keep running? Do you want to be the waitress at the bar who's got other things on her mind, but she's somebody threw her $5 because they like her? Okay, then feel free. But you could also be the person who says, "Hey, can I grab $5 from you? And I'd like to keep in touch. So here's my business card. Could I get yours?" Right? You could be that person. And thank you. I really appreciate this. This $5 is going to go to a good way. Here, I'll even give you a QR code so you can watch for your $5. You know, your brick lays in the foundation of this thing, and for the rest of the time, you can tell people that's your brick because you've literally got a thing there. You can literally do that because you're sending them something most of the time. At least you can structure it to be sending them something. So you can send them something you create, something that your kids create, something that your wife or husband creates, something that your friends from work that you're looking for an excuse to support their projects because they're a good friend of yours and they do something creative and you want to support them. So you do a project that uses that. You've got a small business that for whatever reason you want to support. You finally go through their menu or their list of things that they can offer, and you find something that can be sent. You know, it's practical. It ships in the mail. It's flat. It's fairly inexpensive to ship. It's fairly consistent, so you can do numbers. A lot of this stuff is um, unused because it can seem difficult, and we're not going to get into the technicalities of that, I guess, in this show. We could always do that in the future. And for anybody who's, I don't give a shit about gun people. I like gun people. You can do whatever you want. If you're a Second Amendment activist, meaning people who care about what the Second Amendment protects, and you're struggling to fund that project, you will get free counseling on how to use crowdfunding projects from me. So I'm totally transparent on these projects. Some of them succeed, some of them fail, but they all succeed in learning, right? So with these crowdfunding things, you're sending stuff out. You've got this back and forth. You've got people in a list. You've got their addresses. You're going to be sending them something most of the time. And even if it's a project where you're sending Tony to the Nebraska trip, right? They're not going to get sent a chunk of Tony from that because that'd be weird. But what you could get is something that's non-perishable, that's easy to ship, that could be sent, and it could be a token or a commemorative or a participation token, right? Like, hey, I was part of this, like a coin or like a keychain or a hat or a shirt. You know, you can get something that needs to be sized to the person or something that can be just kind of put on the desk or something, right? Like there's all kinds of things. Again, think about how you can maybe with the place you're going has somebody that does something that could be part of that. Anyway, you can be real creative with it. And that's the part where I say perks are a two-way street. Not only are people fundraising the project or letting the project be funded, but you've got other ways to utilize that that structure or that what's the word the the idea that you're going to be sending out a perk gives you the idea to, or it gives you the ability to send stuff to them. So you're going to send the perk out. Let's say it's a keychain or something. Again, your neighbor makes keychains in the garage out of bottle caps or something. So you figure out a way to customize that to your project. That's what you're going to send out. Well, now you can go get something printed that says this is bottle cap keychain number 14 out of 100. And this was part of this project. And these people were involved. And now maybe that card is one of the perks in your project. And that's the $100 perk, right? That says, I want to be a part of this in a bigger way. And I don't want just a bunch of keychains. How about I am part of the thank you card, right? Like that's some space on that thank you card. So the permanent reminder of this project being made is going to have my name on it or our company's name on it. There's that element to perks being useful going forward, right? The perks could be parts of future projects. This perk is going to be a part of a puzzle piece or part of a link in a chain or part of a, what do they call those things? A charm on a bracelet as you go forward with other projects. And these will all work together. And maybe you're making a giant thing that turns into Voltron when it's all done. So
Yep.
perks, can be very useful compared to, again, a Patreon thank you or, hey, thanks for super chatting. Let's get on with whatever we're dancing here.
Right.
If any of these, I'm trying to star them. Right? You're able to star stuff, right? We got this thing set up where he's like a co
Yeah.
admin or whatever. Feel free to
Yeah, I
star
can.
stuff. Taking a break just to let Clover, I don't want to monopolize it if Clover's got anything to add to that there. Being, the idea of sending out perks. You've had experience with this, sending out stuff, sending out the stickers, signing them.
Yep.
Wait, did I ever get my sticker?
It's on the way.
Oh man, I got ripped off.
It's on the way, man. It went in the mail literally this morning.
I feel like I should have got it handed off by the both
No,
of you.
so I realized.
Each hold it in one hand. Each of you hold it and then hand it to me. So I'm getting it handed to me by both.
So I told everybody that I was going to bring them to SHOT Show, right? If you're at SHOT Show, I'm going to bring your stickers to SHOT Show. I told everybody that. I literally had one person the entirety of SHOT Show ask me about it. They were in my backpack the entire time.
Oh man, I just assumed every time I came up, I was like, this is the time he's gonna give me that damn sticker. This is the time I'm getting what's coming to me.
I was so, you know how SHOT Show gets for some people anyway. And I was so busy that it never crossed my mind. So,
that's right. I never asked for stickers either. I bet you I got.
So anyway, so I realized that last week. And I'm like, okay, well, I've got to get a bunch of Patreon stuff and other stuff gathered up and packaged up. And I'm like, I'll throw them all in envelopes. I had the stamps to be able to throw them all in envelopes and all anyway. It was literally saving me maybe $4 or $5 by bringing them to SHOT Show. It wasn't that, like it was a big money saver or anything. And so, yeah, those got dropped off this morning, as a matter of fact. So if you are out there and you haven't gotten them, because you went to SHOT Show, they're on the way. But yeah, I mean, I've done stuff. I mean, I've made specific swag, right? So like, the YouTube channel members don't realize this, but depending on what level you are on as a YouTube channel member, because YouTube does not give out shipping addresses and they do not provide a spot to say, hey, you get X, Y, and Z available to you, so I can't just ship it out. So you got to realize I was on Patreon, been on Patreon for a long, long time. And Patreon, you have access to somebody's address. So for those little tangible perks, be it the stickers, challenge coins, dog tags, caps, whatever it might be for that particular perk level, patches, somebody signs up and then like a month later, I go in, pull their address, send them their stuff. They don't have to ask or anything. And it's to the point now, unfortunately, that, if you are a YouTube channel member or a Patreon patron and you want the tangible perks, I'm totally fine with that. That's why they're there. That's why I created them. But unfortunately, you've got to ask for them. And it gets back into what I said earlier. I find on my channel and the vast majority of other channels as well. And I'm this way as somebody who supports other channels. I support them for what they're doing and everything. I don't support them for the perks. So, I mean, I could care less about if or not I get entered into a giveaway, or if or not I get a trinket in the mail or a sticker or whatever it might be. I could care less. That's not why, I send them my money every month.
Well, it's good for you, but you go around getting free stuff all the time and you go to shows and swag ain't that big a deal to you. But if you're a normal person and you're minding your business, your gun shop ain't giving you no patches. You go to the range, they're not giving you any patches. You go to 511 or whoever, they want $9 a patch. So I could see people digging, getting some additions to their patch panels. And if a bunch of people were walking around grabbing patches and sending them out, now you got a chance to say, hey, thanks. I really appreciate you sending me this. And now here's my business card. Here's some patches I got from the last show I was at. Here's some stickers. I guess those are even easier to ship. You know what I'm saying? There's just, people got to, hey, on a patch, like I got to go pay $5 to H&K to get that patch, just because H&K can't afford to just give them to people. I guess they'd like to probably, but they got to pay for them and ship them, so they're gonna make them as cheap as possible. But anyway, I don't want to be too contrary, but I'm just saying there's some
Right.
there's other people out there who do appreciate the little stuff. It seems like little stuff.
No. I'm not saying
people
they don't
that
appreciate it. No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's not expected is all I'm saying. And if it's not expected and there's no mechanism for me to obtain their address, like over on Patreon, right? To obtain their address and just ship it anyway. Because I've done that a bunch of times. Like people weren't even expecting anything. And, they get something in the mail because why? Because I have their address through Patreon. The YouTube channel member side is not that way. We don't have access to that. So unless you say, here's my address for any swag, I don't have it.
And that's annoying because we want to get too much into the technical details here, but I don't like the idea of people sending their emails or addressing emails. When you send it on a secure system, it's behind secure stuff that's coded.
Right. And that's another, and that's another point about the crowdfunding, especially when you come from
the platforms, the resource that the platforms are.
Yeah, I'm coming from the perspective of the creator or the whatever influencer, the activist or whatever. Is I got to be real careful how I talk about it here because I don't want to spook anybody. So again, put yourself in the mindset of somebody that is building a core audience, right? That has people that do support them regularly, that sort of thing. Some of the crowdfunding mechanisms and all gives an opportunity for data collection as well, be it emails for an email list, right? And you can blast that out in the future, or like you're talking about with Patreon, we have access to addresses and we can just randomly send somebody something if we want, assuming that address is up to date. Whereas something like the YouTube side
Patreon, you also have an opportunity in Patreon to say in a message, hey, I'd like to send you something. Is this the correct address? And they can say yes or no, but send it to this one because my blah, blah, blah. They can say yes or
assuming though, and here's the thing. I mean, there's a lot left on the table with that. And that's one of the issues I've come to have with Patreon. Not necessarily, it's not an issue. So don't I hate this or, it's anybody's fault or whatever, but it's one of the drawbacks, I guess you could just say, a mild way of putting it, with Patreon is, again, I find that the majority of people that I've got anyway over on Patreon, they don't even pay attention to Patreon. Like, even if you sent them a message, like they don't ever log in. They don't have the app on their phone. Like, it doesn't matter. All they did, they went over there, they signed up, they linked their credit card or PayPal or whatever, and they agreed to give you X number of dollars a month, and they're done. Like they're out, literally.
Because most people, and that's you're right, that's a different direction, but it's true, 100%. And that's because most people are paying attention to you from wherever it is you sent them to Patreon. Very few people are going around Patreon and saying, I'd like to put $20 down a month. I'm already putting $5 down on gun websites, and I'm already putting $5 down on Clover. So I've still got $10 I'd like to invest in stuff that I value, and I'm going to go seek stuff out on Patreon. That's the rarity. Most people are thinking, I like what this person's doing. I wish there was a way I could be part of it. Okay, I can go to their Patreon and subscribe. And I'm already on Patreon from Clover and gun websites. So now I found that person. But that's because that's how most people use it. They consider it a tip jar. They consider it a subscription service, and then they walk away from it because they're there to do YouTube.
Yep.
I use my Patreon as a blog. I use it as a poll. I use it to ask questions and invite people into my live chats. So it's a gateway, like, hey, if you want to be part of the live chat, there's a link over on Patreon. Anybody who's participating on Patreon at $1 or more a year or a month or whatever it is, jump in. So that way, I can, in one of the membership, when I was still monetized on YouTube and I had the YouTube membership, same thing. Hey, I can drop the link discreetly to just my membership. And now I just don't drop the link in the chat and anybody can join. So there's ways that you can use your Patreon as a interactive thing. And now you're going to find people who, again, are going to be exactly how Clover described. I just want to give this person $2 a month and I'm out of here.
Yeah,
so Patreon is that factor or function.
But
but the people that want to come over. Huh?
I do that. I use my Patreon as like a members only type thing. There's stuff that's other than the YouTube channel members,
Yeah,
right?
but you don't go
Obviously,
around
both of them, but
massaging your subscribers into people who just want to be part of live chats. If you did a thing like what Matt does and you had a bunch of people that want to be part of live chats, or what Foss is doing in the evenings and a bunch of us jump in, you just don't have a chat situation where you're like, hey, there's a link in Patreon and join in. And now there's this round table and people jump in because they want to be a part of it. You're just not, you just haven't gone in that direction, but you could. And you just, that's what I'm saying. There's ways to use these platforms. It's not like the platform is vacant and sterile. It's just that some people are using it as a mail drop. And yeah, nobody goes and hangs out in a mail drop unless you say, hey, the fifth person that drops things off personally at the mail drop wins $1 million. And guess who's hanging out at the mail drop? But there's no right or wrong way to use this. We're just describing the tools. And, again, like, I've got a hammer and it doesn't drive nails perfectly. Well, hammer all the time and it'll start driving nails really good. Pizza place, gallon a date, fountain, wish. So let's say there's Clover and he's doing his dance. He's got his guitar. He's got his drum up on his head with some sort of a deal where he wiggles on his pipe and his drum goes. He's got the cymbals on his knees and he's playing whatever song people want as they're coming by, right? And he's got his Clover hat on the ground and people are dropping quarters in there. So how many people are participating in that, right? The people that are walking by and are like, hey, this guy is obviously looking for some money. Let's give him some money, right? I got a couple of change in my pocket. It's bothering me. It's clicking against my knife anyway. I'm getting rid of this quarter and this penny or whatever it is. Boom. Clover's just scooped up 26 cents as a convenience to somebody. You're walking down the street and you go, oh man, this is the song that we got together. So we're dropping that in there, right? You got the people who are just at a parade or something and you're entertaining them. So they are like, hey, thank you for that. Here's a little tip, right? You got all these. And that's, I think, what most people, if I was earlier in the show and I could spend some time here and I was trying to elicit feedback, we could ask people who's going to be putting into that tip jar. So there's going to be a bunch of people who are end users using that tip jar. But now let's think outside the box. What if you're the people that sell billboards on that street where Clover is doing his little dance, and Clover is attracting people to the street, and now people are on the street, whether or not they like Clover, they're looking around the street and there's your billboards and you're getting significant amount of money for those billboards to be there. Is it possible you're going to throw Clover a bone because he's helping keeping people on that street instead of 3 streets over where your billboards are not? Think about that. What if you're the pizza place and Clover's out front? Sometimes you're going to be like, Clover, get out of here. Other times you're going to be like, hey, go give that Clover guy a free pizza because he's bringing people in the pizza place. So you've got those elements to it. Now you've got you're on your date and this is the dude you've been chatting up forever and you're going to throw $20 down to impress him. And now that chick needed to throw $20 somewhere to get that guy impressed because she's going to show him how much of a sugar mama she is. Where is she going to throw that $20? At the tip at the guy who's in the pizza place, or to the guy out front, Clover, singing. So you become a vector. You become a place for people who want a virtue signal. You become a place for people who have money and are looking for something to do with it, right? There's that impulse. There's that, what's that, being on the Twinkie or the Snickers bar on the shelf as you're at the register on your way out the store.
Impulse buy.
There's the reason they put that there. And then you get your the fountain, right? The tradition. So some people tithe. Is that the word? Some people like to offer something to others. Some people appreciate what they've got and they like to pass it around. So you can sit there going, aw, shucks, I shouldn't ask for nothing. Or you can say, aw, shucks, it costs me a shit ton of money to travel all over the place to try to offer my perspective on what's going on out there. And there's people out there in the richest country on the planet with 350 something million people that value capitalism. And they understand that by moving a little bit of financial resource from my numbers over here to your numbers over there, you're efforting and you're doing something. And I see people out there just leaning into the bullshit that are getting rich. And that's got to be frustrating as shit for the people that are working in a direction with valid stuff in mind, right? And there's going to be those people that are just looking to do it. And you can either be there for them or you can wonder if they're out there. So I wanted to offer some other versions
Well,
of how that hat, even if you think of yourself as doing the dance and you've got the hat out there and that's all you think of these crowdfunding things as, there's more to it. Think outside of that box. There's more to people on that street than just the person who's being entertained by the song. I'll shut up.
well, no, I was just going to say this is valid, and that gets into, a question that I hear all the time, whether it's crowdfunding, fan funding, Patreon, Kickstarter, whatever, right? Um, People are always, or creators, influencers, whatever, are always like, "Oh, when should I start? When should I do this?" And I'm like, "Get it out there as soon as possible." Like, you don't know. You could start a channel tomorrow and your very first subscriber be like, holy crap, I see this person going somewhere. This video they put out, even though you've not only got one video and it's your very first viewer, your very first subscriber goes, wow, I can see this going somewhere. I'm going to share this. And you've got some links, you've got, some things already sitting there. You may not be promoting them or anything, but you've got them there, and that person cares enough, right? Is invested, I guess, mentally at this point, not financially enough, into wanting to help you. Like, hey, I'm number one, and I want to see this thing grow. That they're looking for those mechanisms, and so make sure that you have definitely that you have things in play um, as early as possible. There's no set rule or standard to that, and it goes along with exactly what you were saying, G. There's so many people willing to help out. Sometimes it's for selfish means, sometimes it's for unselfish means, sometimes they expect a return, sometimes they don't. There's various reasons why people would do it, but the point is there's a lot of people doing it for a lot of different reasons, and having those hats or those buckets or those pockets out there and available for folks, I think is the most important aspect of it.
For a long time when I was doing the cards, I did the AK-47 deck in 2015, and then I did the Old West deck a couple years later, and then I did the Firearms Inventors deck. Each of those were different depths of, being workshops and different depths of being crowdfunding and that kind of stuff. Dang it, what was your last point?
Oh, there's so many people that are looking to
thank you.
Toss out money for so many reasons.
Because I was doing cards for so long, like over a series of years, I was looking at different crowdfunding projects that were other cards, and I was participating in them because I was curious to see how they packaged them and what their follow-up was like and what kind of participation they had in the project. And you can get that from observing, but you can also get it from being a part of it. And sometimes it's $2 because I didn't care about the deck of cards, but I wanted to be part of it and subscribe and get their updates. Sometimes it was $20 because I wanted to get their deck of cards. One of the decks of cards was a clear set of cards. Like the cards are made on clear plastic. They're just like embossed or whatever. They're like pressed in so you can feel them and see them a little bit, but mostly like almost like a braille deck or something. But they're super cool. They're just all clear. And then the box is clear. So you can literally see through the whole deck. It's really neat. But it was like $20 or something. And I'm like, yeah, that has to happen. That just needs to be a thing. I don't know why, but it's just super cool, right? So, some of them I just wanted to be part of. So period, boom. Like just because I'm doing things similar to what other people are doing, I'm participating in probably 10 card projects where I would have never participated in those card projects, except that I happen to be doing card projects. So you don't know what's going on out there and who your competitors, your allies, your peers, how many of them are going to participate for all those reasons and more.
Yep, this is true.
Okay, so, wait. G23 asked a couple of questions. Is there a good question, or is there a good recipe for doing a crowd fundraiser? Go ahead. How many have you done now? You've done more than a couple, so have you found a recipe?
Not really. Some work better than others and whatever. Over the last couple of years, with the economy, with the lockdowns, everything else going on, I will say it's been really weird. So, hopefully things equalize, normalize eventually. yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the recipe is, what is your project, right? Like, what is your goal? You got to start with that, obviously. Um, as with any recipe, what are you trying to make, right? Um, from there, it's a matter of, hashing that out and fleshing that out. So, you want to, for me, I want to say, okay, well, here's what I need to do. You know, what is the absolute bottom dollar, right? Budget, shoestring budget type way of accomplishing in this. And then what's my optimal way, right? And then that way I know, like, in order to make this happen, because the crowdfunding or whatever is not as successful as you'd like it to be, for me, I want to know what that bottom tier is, because as G's pointed out, as we talked about, when you're doing a crowdfunding project, the goal is to complete said project, right? And so for the people that vested in that, to see that project completed, right, is I mean, is something that they're going to want. So for me, I'm going to want to, okay, if I optimally I want to raise 2 grand, but I could pull it off for 12, right? So I'll push for that 2 grand, and then as long as we can come out with the 12, then it's a success. We made whatever that project was happen, right? And so, fleshing all of that out. Um, from there, I mean, start figuring out, where you're going to push this out to. Like, do you have an email list? Do you have, um, your YouTube channel, your social media? How are you going to push this out? What type of numbers are you looking at as far as being able to push that out, right? And then, okay, I've got all of these numbers. Realistically speaking, how many people out of all those numbers now do I think are kind of a lock, right, to buy in? And you're going to tie that into, and I know I'm getting way off into the weeds, but I know you're going to tie that into that lower number, at least I do, right? And then it's a matter of, okay, you know what you're doing, you know roughly the cost and what you want the project to bring in at a minimum, who all you're going to be reaching out to with this. There's going to be extra and unforeseen stuff, of course. But you're going to be, pushing out to those people. Now, what are you going to push out, right? Um, and then from there, it's figuring out, okay, if we do 1,200, we make the project happen. But if we do 2,000, we make the project happen, and some perks can kick in, or whatever, the extras are. So, that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of my thinking about it in a way, the progression of it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. There's there's no answer, because there's many answers, and without getting into trying to get into the technical or strategic aspects of it, um, I think that's about the best uh, synopsis or summary. So the answer is there's so many answers, right? So good recipe. Well, I'm not going to just repeat everything Clover says. I guess I'm going to I'm going to go at it a different way, since we're all gun people. Uh, so whatever you're going to start with, a gun for shooting, maybe you start with the bolt action. Maybe you start with um, uh, a just move something here that's distracting me. Maybe you start with a bolt action. Maybe you start with an AR-15. Maybe you start with a pistol. Maybe you start with a revolver. Whatever it is, that's your first experience with a gun. Is it your last experience with a gun? Immediately, depending on your situation, you're starting, you're shooting another type of gun right then. Maybe going out for a session with somebody and you shoot 3 or 4 different types of guns, but you prefer one. Now you're wondering what a pump action shotgun is like, because you still haven't shot that. I've never shot a lever action. What could the recoil impulse be like on a gun that doesn't have anything that moves when it shoots? Everything I've shot immediately starts to, after a slight dwell, immediately starts to go into action, and the gas is pushing things and the gun is operating, and while I'm holding it. And those have been really different. What's it going to be like when that doesn't happen? If you never shot a bolt action, you don't know what it's like to get recoil. So, every action requires an opposite reaction. If there's no action happening, you think revolvers and bolt actions don't kick. You don't even know what kick is if you're somebody that's only shot 1-9s, right? So, in dealing with it and being able to shoot it, well, if you've only shot revolvers and now you start shooting semi-autos and you realize that the kick that you're used to in a revolver is incorporated into the action of the semi-auto and it's gone, you have to learn how to shoot differently. Are you going to be not able to? No, you're going to just do it a little bit differently. And I'm bringing this up to say that we adapt pretty easy to all kinds of things. We can understand how to shoot a revolver and apply that to shooting a bolt action, understanding there's going to be some differences. And that's the way my answer is to this. Is there a recipe for doing a crowdfunding? If you're crowdfunding for your project, G23 hosts a live show each Saturday. He's got a large audience of people that care about him. He's providing something to a large community by giving us, essentially, I'm thinking of it as like a watering hole. It's the water fountain, but even more than that, it's like the Cheers. It's like the bar. And while he doesn't have a cost for the real estate, what he does have is a lot of time invested. And every week he's there providing a live show with an ongoing conversation that people are allowed to, feel welcome to participate in and be a part of, whether they're participatory or observers. And a lot of times people don't realize the value that is. But if you don't have that, all you have is fake bullshit artists that are exploiting it for the super chats. And all they're going to do is the bare minimum so that they never have to, do anything that challenges or endangers any of that system. So by having regular people out there that are just putting their own time into it for their own reasons, they're providing a lot for the community. So he's got a lot of people that participate by, again, being part of the conversations, either literally joining when he sends links or in the text chats, right? And people that look forward to that, people that literally plan their weeks around it. And even if that's just dozens of people, it turns into hundreds of people in the residual once the video renders and once people have a chance to watch it on their own schedules. And there's people that appreciate that at different times in different ways. And nobody pays attention to this, but think of the future. Think of the value that this may be and possibly is adding to the future, who's trying to get a real appreciation for what life was like in 2023. Do you think anything that's viral is a real indication of what his life is like in 2023? Or do you think that these hours-long, consistent live conversations with real people having conversations about things of the day, these are the boxes of black and white photographs that come from somebody's suitcase. These are the actual indicators of what life is like in 2023. We are an invaluable resource for the future. And sponsors should realize that, but we should all understand what value we're providing, to not just for ourselves, for currently and for the challenges that we face as a community that's being marginalized with a lot of resource behind it. The 14th wealthiest person on the planet is attempting to hire the lady who normalized Roundup with Monsanto to marginalize our property and our decision to own that property, and our understanding that gives us a lack of fear of our neighbors. And that's a big thing. And what we're providing is an insight to the future of that. And that might be too big for people, but that's the kind of stuff that G23 is offering out there, his slice of that. So right now he's doing some stuff where he's got to pay for gas, and he's got an Indiegogo going. So is there a recipe for that? Yeah, there's probably way better recipes. That's not my forte. It's not what I have experience in, but you don't need to have an expert. You can literally just go experience. Well, actually, we have an expert. Crump is out there, and he's done some crowdfunding for projects that are health related, right? Without getting into it. So there's definitely some strategies for the give, send, go. So again, people that value what you're doing just need to be aware that you need a bit of assistance. I'll shut up again and let Clover chime in on this one again.
No, I agree, and that's what. Since you're talking about that, may jump start comments, because I know that you were, but we've got one out there, worthwhile fun. I'm one of those all shucks why should I take someone's dough kind of girls. But you're making me think here. So a time may come when there's something outside my reach without someone's help. The quicker you get over that, the better you're going to be. There is lots of money out there, even in what, right now, I don't consider right now economically in this country the best of times. There's still lots of money out there. When you're talking about zero money to help with a project, starting at zero, if you say, "Aw, shucks," and just don't pursue anything, that's zero, right? Um, there's money out there. So, there's people that want to throw money at worthwhile projects, right? Um, so it's tough to get over that. I totally understand that aspect of things. I've definitely progressed over the years from, having that mentality to relaxing that, it's been a gradual thing for me. And I'm pretty much at this point, and I think G probably is too, pretty much at this point where I'm over the whole, I don't mind because I understand the way the world works. And, the quicker you get to that point, the quicker it's going to help not only with um, your, I don't want to say mental health, but your perspective on it. Um, the quicker you become more accustomed to it, and you realize that it's the norm. But also the quicker that you get help with your projects and are able to move that ball forward and get things done and accomplished faster. And a lot of what she is doing and accomplishing is absolutely 100% a worthwhile, no pun intended, I guess, effort.
So without getting too much into, we're talking today. We just brought up crowdfunding campaigns and strategy. I guess that's the whole title of this thing. So we probably could get into it, but I'm trying to keep it. There's no way it's going to be 90 minutes. We're about 4 minutes away from that. So everybody's got the first question from G23 was, is there a recipe? And the answer was there's a zillion recipes. So the answer is yes and no, because there's too many of them to say there's one, right? So there's lots of them, and there's, just like recipes for cookies. There's a million recipes for cookies at Christmas time. You're going from this realm of recipes, and at Thanksgiving you're going from this realm, and whatever birthday, I don't know if there's birthday cookies, but you know what I mean. There's unlimited numbers, and you're going to kind of limit it down at times, but you're still going to have options. And then those options are going to depend on who's showing up. If they don't like nuts, you're not going to use a cookie with nuts in it. And if somebody doesn't like chocolate chips, well, you're not going to invite them, right? Because you're going to make chocolate chip cookies. So, there's those kind of decisions. So with what Susan's doing as being an advocate for the DC, an advocate for us and for civil rights, and then for being a DC project delegate, you've got a different, you're doing things at a different level, which means you've got gas costs, you're doing stuff, taking time away from work and family, deciding, is it worth going there and having to be in a sketchy hotel versus, can I just get this, can I make this happen? But you've also got the audience factor of it. So part of this strategy isn't just how, like Clover was alluding to on a previous question, or maybe it was the answer to the G23's previous question of the technical, how do you figure out what to offer and how to accomplish that, and how to figure it all out, or factor how much shipping is going to cost and how much it's going to cost to get this many of that quantity of stuff. You've got another aspect of strategy where you're creating alumni, or whatever you want to call it. You're creating people who have participated in your project financially.
Yep.
And that's similar to what we have on Patreon, with people who are literally invested in what you're doing. And you've got that infrastructure that is difficult to obtain with something like a super chat or a pat on the back or a hey, thank you, and the attaboy type of stuff, which is appreciated and necessary. And people should not undervalue the value there. As human beings on the other side of the internet, all of that adds up. But again, you want to have a place that makes it easy to have, to facilitate and then attract the people who are interested in funding you. I guess I was going to say a couple of things for what Clover was just saying there. Money's different, worth different things to different people. So certain people are going to throw $100 around where I'm going to throw $5 around. Like, I don't even care about $5. I'm that kind of money, right? Like, if somebody's got a project going, I'll throw $5 at it. If somebody's doing Patreon and they're of value, I'll put $1 there. I'm not rich, so I can't fund people, but I can participate. I can be on board. I can be there as a pat on the back and like, hey, I'm here. And if something big comes up, let me know. But, I'm involved, but, I'm just one of many. And I understand that there's value there. But there's other people that can do that with $100. And trust me, there's people that can do that with $100. And it's, we live capitalism. We're the richest country on the planet. And just because you're not like that doesn't mean there's not people that are like that. And you either have a situation where that's there or not. But trust me, the people that are just leaning into the bullshit every day are doing it for a reason. And that's because there are people that throw around $100 the way that some of us throw around $5. And when that happens and you've got a million people, how many people you think they got that can throw around $100 for that engraved $20 thing? And they just made an $80 profit on it, and they just moved 1,000 of them. So that's $80,000. Is that person motivated to go change anything, or are they motivated to lean into that and do it again for 160? It gets big. So we're talking people who are aw shucks in it, and there's people out there that have gotten either past that glitch or never had that glitch. They were out there trying to do stuff in different realms and figured out that there's stuff to do over here. Mm-hmm. So that is happening, period. So whether or not you want to be a part of it or be in that mix is what I'm saying. And I'm assuming, and what I see is when there's people like Susan who are putting their selves and what they're offering, their accomplishments and their ambitions out there. Now people who can throw $5 around can go, oh, I'd much rather put my $5, just, I have the discretion to put my $5 where I want in capitalism. This is something that's necessary. This is something I want to be a part of. And the same thing, they're going to find those people that have the $100 or the $25 or the $30 everywhere in that spectrum. So that money's out there. You're either participating in it or not. But that's just, one of the other things, without being a nag, but I'm going to be a nag. And there's no scouts anymore, so I don't even know what scouts are like. But she also said I could be in a brownie in first grade because I didn't want to sell the cookies. I'm not sure if brownies sold cookies or not. I know Girl Scouts did, but I understand what you're saying there. The salesmanship part of it was uncomfortable, and it was something that I didn't want to do. But I also don't like swimming, and I'm trying to think of what else I don't like doing. There's certain things I don't like doing, but I appreciate having been forced to do them. So if nothing else, I can not like them for real. Like, I know that I don't like them. Eating sweet potatoes. Somebody made me eat sweet potatoes at some point, so I can 100% know that I hate eating them. I'm never going to eat them, right? I don't like them. But, what I mean? That's a inconsequential one. Certain things are valuable to learn. I don't know. What about salesmanship? What about entrepreneurialism? What about what's the word? It's entrepreneurial.
People are better.
When did you get into that? Or was that something that was just there? Or was it something that you had to learn to appreciate? Or was it a skill you had to obtain? Or did you have it?
You talking about me?
Yeah, sorry, Clover. Yeah.
Dude, I was reselling penny candy in elementary school. What are you talking about? Like,
oh, yeah, I did the same thing. Yeah,
I've had
gum and sell it at school for
right.
I don't know, because it just seemed like, why wouldn't you do this?
Yeah, I've had it paid for snacks in the snack machine. Like I could not only just eat what my mom get left over from lunch money or whatever.
But you know what? The reason I did that is because I was part of Scouts, and in Scouts we would all go around and sell $10 tickets to a spaghetti dinner, probably $5 or whatever it was back in the day. And then we would buy a bunch of spaghetti for like, X amount of dollars, and we would be able to go camping, and we'd be able to do a lot of cool stuff, understanding that there was that.
You're right.
Go ahead.
No, you're right. And you're kind of going down the road and making my point. And so with Susan, in a way, here she didn't want to sell cookies for the brownies. Big difference between I'm going to sell myself and whatever product and thing I've got going here, right? Project, and I'm in complete control of not only the money, but what I do and how I manage the product and this, that, and the other. And I'm going to go sell cookies for this organization that's going to dictate the rules of how we spend this money and the scoutmaster, or whatever it might be, and the rules that they may have in play. And, that's much different than you're in complete control of it. And so that's one of the cool things about, when you're talking about entrepreneurship or whatever on that singular project, singular person level, right? Is that like you've got all that control. So like, the selling, penny candy in elementary school, right? That led to, I could buy extra Star Wars figures when we went to town, right? Like, well, my brother and I both got one, that mom or dad would buy, but then I could buy another two. Why? Because I had a pocket full of change or whatever the case may be, right? And so the beautiful thing is I was allowed the freedom, to be able to do that. But it's the same situation. And I find, the biggest thing is, and one part of what, Susan said out there, it does resonate and it is true, is the selling aspect, right? Like we're all selling, whether you're trying to attract a mate or whatever the case may be, we're selling ourself or certain things every single day of the week. It may not be in return for cash or money, right? So I find that people are better at selling, and especially themselves and or the things that they're truly passionate about, than they think they are. A lot of people are like, I don't know, I'm just not good at the closing the deal and the selling. And it's like, well, you probably just never really sit down and given it a lot of thought and fleshed things out. You way better at it than
Appreciated that you've done it before, or that
right.
you're doing it all
Yeah.
the time, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was going to throw this out there. I don't know what kind of discretion or leeway the DC project offers, because they do have their own shirts and stuff, and there might be some procedure or the way that they deal with this. But for a regular channel, for somebody doing something, uh, for example, and think outside the box on this, but the back of your T-shirt, the front of your T-shirt might be whatever you got going on there. Probably most people would tell you have your own logo. Some people are going to not carry their own logo around on their T-shirt, but the back of your shirt could potentially be like a list of the people that made it possible for you to do whatever it is you're doing. A thank you list, a participation list, similar to think about like an event that happens and it says here's all the sponsors. Well, if you're doing something and you're going someplace or you're accomplishing something, you've got ways to thank and acknowledge those that are being part of what you're doing, and that can be that token or that catalyst. You don't have to have a keychain or a hat or something like a shirt that you got to figure out what size and you got to figure out what brand. Trust me, there's no win on a shirt. Whatever you do, I don't like the way the iron-on is on there. I don't like the brand of this shirt. Can it be a little bit different shade of different color? Like I didn't get it fast enough. The company you use is too anonymous. They don't love my shirt enough. Like there's a million things. And then the other side of it is this is the best quality shirt ever. Like, thank you. These shirts are awesome. Super fast delivery. Like, what I mean? There's no win on certain things. So sometimes just having an acknowledgement or a thank you or a creative way to, maybe at the introduction or the exit of your show or your videos or something, you say thanks. There's ways that people acknowledge those folks, and that can be the when you're thinking, oh shucks, part of that is maybe part of that hesitation or apprehension is that's a lot to get into, having to come up with a keychain or a shirt supplier and all that and a design, and then again all the complications that might seem like they're overwhelming. One way to remove some of that is to think of it as like the subscription model or the support model that PBS used to use. This is brought to you by, just a subtle thank you to the folks that do it. That way you're offering something in return. Again, you're leaving something behind that's of value, a video, a blog post, a podcast, whatever it might be, some photographs even. And in the description, you're leaving permanently a thank you to the people that created that. It's like, making a statue and then having an inscription below. It's going to be there for the perpetuity.
Well, what about the optics? If you're talking about something like, especially DC Project, I don't know how many names you can squeeze on the back of a shirt, but I've seen 300 before with some of the 4-H tournaments and stuff that we we participated in. So what kind of dynamic would it be with somebody like that, like a lady of the DC project that wears that shirt, goes in to talk with a state or a, whatever representative or whatever, and actually has that list of names or 300 names or whatever on the back of her shirt? I
Ouch.
mean,
And she can
it's
turn
like
around and point at her back and say, "These are the people I represent,"
a
and more.
portion. Here's
Yeah,
the dedicated people I
yeah,
represent, right? Like
yeah.
not all I represent. And I mean, obviously they've got to understand the significance and that, the organization has a certain amount of reach and all of that, when you're going in and you're talking with them. But I'm just curious as to what the optics might look like with something like that. It
I
could
know
be a
that the
cool
fundraising
thing.
opportunity is that shirt, the shirt that was worn this session to the challenge or for these testimonials had
This
these
many
people's
people sent
names
me
on it,
here.
and you
Yeah.
can buy this shirt at the print on demand place with this particular, just like a tour T-shirt. It's a
Hmm.
DC project in the front, and it's
Hmm.
this stop on the tour 2023, and
Yep.
these were the people that were on our Patreon that got me
Limited.
that.
Yeah, limited run to
Yeah.
the actual
Not
whatever
everybody's going to care,
legislative.
but the people that
Yeah.
participated can go jogging in a shirt that shows that they participated, and
Hmm.
that's a catalyst for some participation and some stuff getting out there in real life. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And there's even a way, because this is what they would do with the shirts I'm talking about. They would have all their participants right listed on the back of the shirt. And so you buy the shirt. They obviously mass produced those. But then when you bought a shirt, they gave you an iron-on little vinyl star that you could take home and iron that star next to your name on the shirt, on the back of the shirt. If you wanted to do that, I guess. I don't know how many people did that. But it was definitely a possibility. So, you know, that could be something that, for the people, and a little vinyl star, iron-on star, the size to go beside somebody's name would be insignificant as far as, the cost of the shirt and, the project overall. But that could be something that's really cool. Not only would they be jogging around or whatever with a shirt that they helped to create for a specific legislative endeavor or whatever it might be, but then they could also personalize said shirt to where it's right away somebody can look and see their name on there, right?
Or their channel, right? Like
Or yes, however they wanted to
their
put it on the
project.
shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So Tony could do that for each diversity shoot. I'm just saying. So think about if you're a T-shirt company out there, instead of trying to screw people over, come up with another stupid ass way to be sarcastic or some way to screw people over, like most of the T-shirt places in my experience have done. Think about how you could help people with doing some, not just print on demand, but like up to date situation like that, or specific or personalized. I don't know what the word is. Personalized.
Right.
Anyway, let's keep moving on. We're hour and 42, so we're going to try to whip through these as a palate
let's
cleanser.
burn through
Milsurf
these
Duo,
questions.
welcome to everybody who's joining. I kind of flash up on the screen when people say hello, but a lot of people have been in and out. We appreciate the people that join us on midday or morning. Come on, puppy. My puppy is getting into this mood. People that join us in the midday morning for a show like this one, and the people that listen to us after the fact, feel free to leave some comments. So as a palate cleanser, Milsurf Duo says, when is the Thunder on the Prairie shoot? I know it's sometime in June. I have it over on the calendar, but I'm in the midst of, I wasn't going to pay for my calendar anymore. So I'm moving over to Google Calendars, so I can't easily jump over and get you that date. Does anybody know it off the top of their head?
Yeah, I don't.
My calendar's all busted right now.
To reach out to probably Defense Dad, probably.
If
If
it's
you
Defense
reach out to
Dad
him.
shoot, Travis helps him with it.
Yeah.
Jeff is saying, jumping over to the Hummer Gear Report channel on YouTube. I feel physical pain when platforms take their cut. And I hear you, I'm super cheap, but at the same time, we're getting a lot of benefit. It does hork my gourds, but I'd rather have the participation than not. But again, when you're dealing with a lot of people, it doesn't matter. So the people that are getting hundreds and hundreds of dollars worth of super chats every night could care less. They're never going to complain And that's how YouTube is able to stay doing it that way. Again, they're having to create islands to cool the servers, right? They're creating islands so that they're floating servers out there in the ocean to keep their, they have so many servers running to keep YouTube going. So
Yeah.
they're not making they're making money, but they're reinvesting it in the systems here. So I'm not too worried about YouTube. But what I was getting at is when you're having an actual relationship with your audience and the people that subscribe, we're not just talking about audience anymore. We're talking about the people that participate financially in the continuation and the growth of your project, right? We're talking to Second Amendment advocates here, and I guess other people are listening. But if you are trying to get your project, like Tony's trying to get his project out there, the people that care about what he's doing don't need to, they'll understand that this one has a 3% cut and that one has a 20% cut, and they'll do what they can to get to the platform that has that cut. Now, you may still want to have presence on the other platforms because there's people that, like Gizzard, has a reason to not want to use Patreon. So having, a way to be a channel member on the YouTube is an option for people that aren't going to show up at, I won't do stuff on Facebook. There's just things that people have, lines or firewalls at work or whatever it might be. Their credit card doesn't work with the system or something. So you want to have presences places, but there's also a way to just have an open conversation with your subscribers and let them know, hey, this is the place that we get the most bang for the buck. And it's like, I use Patreon, it's the least cut, but it also gives you the most services. It's a very feature rich platform for that project, for that element of our projects. So it allows people to contribute at different levels, and it allows us to have different relationships with those people at different levels. I can, for example, drop a link out to people that are at this level. So people that don't want to be at that level don't have to worry about getting these links. I could probably start sending the weekly thing out to people that subscribe to it. And, that's a function of Patreon that allows people to just to decide, what they want to get as far as feedback, or, it gives you a lot more control than just a not anonymous, but a super chat, which is just here's $2. Now it's up to you to manage it and decide what to do with it. And you can never talk to me again because of it, or, disconnected or anything. So that's the part where taking the cut. Yeah. But, being open and letting people know is part of it. And, well, I'm just repeating myself. Do you want to add anything to that one?
No, I agree. It's one of the
I feel
things
like
you have to just.
Don't you have to show for YouTube right now? Don't you have to show for YouTube right here? It's not YouTube's
Not
fault.
really.
They need to pay Cover big bucks. So
this is true. This is true.
30%.
Yeah, I only get 5 of that 30, just to be transparent. But it does make a difference.
If you were getting 5% of all gun videos, I don't think we'd be talking to Clover. He'd be flying around in some fancy yacht shooting shotguns or revolvers out of the windows or something.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So now we got Solus Ginger saying, I hope you meet girl with the new machine. Thanks. I've shared it to my socials. Appreciate it. Thank you. And that's really what it works. Getting it out there. You never know who's going to be interested or who's going to value the concept for all different kinds of reasons. And I only need 140 people on the whole planet. So I really do appreciate the help there. We'll probably we will do some more of these because this one didn't even get in really to strategies too much. We offered a couple of different strategies here specifically, but because we're kind of just describing the platforms, we haven't even really got into that part yet. The next question will start giving us that direction, but we'll go in. We'll have other chats on this, and since I'm doing a project right now live that'll end at the end of the week, we'll be able to look at like the guts, like the results of, and going to play around with that a little bit more as the week goes on. G23 brought up a couple of questions that are kind of related, intertwined, and other people had asked the question additionally, but we're just lagging because we chatted first and now we're catching up with the questions. So this one is Give Send Go a viable option for crowdfunding raising, or is there better options? And then I think he also asked similar follow-up, I guess. Give, Send, Go, Cash App, PayPal, Indiegogo, Patreon. Which of these is the platform that you use most for crowdfunding and why? So first I think I'm gonna let Clover take this one and take a certain little ornery SOB outside to potty since he refused to do it before the show. And then I'll give Clover a chance to riff here.
Yeah, so other than being involved in projects from Indiegogo, I haven't used Indiegogo myself, right? So that's a story with Indiegogo. So certainly not the one I've used the most. Um, but I mean, I can see the value in there in the many projects that, of course, GWebs has done there. Give, Send, Go, I've never used not once. Um, Cash App and PayPal. So Cash App and PayPal are, especially Cash App. So Cash App is strictly just sending money. As far as tracking ability, tying that into any type of product, anything else. Do I use Cash App? Yeah, I mean, Cash App's listed in the description, and occasionally I'll have people that'll, instead of a super chat, will send a Cash App or something like that. And of course, I use Cash App. There's some other channels, usually not in the gun sphere, the GunTuber world, that they prefer Cash App over a super chat for the reasons that Jeff with Gear Report was mentioning in the cut. And so, I'll send something through Cash App, and they still put it on the screen and everything and mention the comment. If you put a comment in the description or what's this for or whatever. Um, as far as used the most for crowdfunding, I would say PayPal. So like the sticker thing recently we did and all that. You can set up buttons and inventory and all kinds of things in PayPal. As far as the GunTuber space, you got to be really careful with how you word things and how you set those projects up with PayPal. That's the biggest thing. And that's gonna be potentially problematic with all platforms and something we really didn't get into. Um, but when you're talking about funding a specific GunTuber project, 2A might not be such a big deal if you're talking patches or something like that. But especially if you're, talking about something to deal with firearm parts or firearms themselves or ammunition or, anything like that, you're going to have to be a little bit careful. But yeah, I use PayPal pretty regular. I mean, PayPal is a part of the store over at clovertech.com/shop. Integrated into that, of course, with the stickers and the patches and the other things. So, um, use as far as single use, day to day basis type thing, probably PayPal. And then Patreon is again, not really for me a crowdfunding, right? More of a fan funding mechanism. I obviously work PayPal from behind the scenes content to pre-release to being able to vote in polls with what we do on the channel, and there's all types of things that I use Patreon for. But Patreon is like an ongoing thing, right? It's not like an individual project style thing. Now you could set up your PayPal for a specific individual project, but then it would be kind of the ongoing thing almost of that, right? Um, and then there are some options within PayPal, as G had mentioned earlier, Patreon, where people can pay per like piece of content or per whatever's going on. So that's
Oh,
kind of
you
the
mean like a
differences.
PayPal subscription button? You mean?
No, I meant Patreon. I said PayPal. I meant Patreon. Patreon has
Oh,
that
but there
ability
is a
to.
PayPal subscription button
There
that
is
people
a
can do almost
PayPal,
any of this stuff.
yeah, and Cash App I think has it too, where you can set it up where every month it'll send X number of dollars or whatever. Yeah.
So first off, he's gonna get a whooping because he didn't even need to do nothing. He went out there and ate some grass and just stood there looking at the sun. So he didn't do anything. Now he's just running around being mean to Mello. So I don't know what Clover said here. I've used I haven't used Give, Send, Go. Give, Send, Go is the new cool GoFundMe because GoFundMe was mean to people and Give, Send, Go was nice to Canadian truckers. So welcome to cycles and trends and popularity and blah, blah, blah. So right now the Give ones are in flux. Why? Because they're Give ones. They're like, hey, I've got a health problem. Hey, my dog's sick. Hey, I'm trying to get home. Like, hey, I got stranded here. Hey, my truck broke down. These are all valid reasons for people to participate, and they offer a way for a project. All the things I said before. If you just want to put a tip jar out, awesome. But there's no way to say thank you to the people who gave you $20 with a Give, Send, Go with a GoFundMe. There's a way for you to say thank you, if nothing else, to say thank you to the project, to an update to the project, to have it ongoing so people can say, hey, the dog is doing fine. I got home, right? You can, there's ways to deal with it, where if everybody just gives you $20, now what are you going to have to figure out how to say thank you to everybody? It's like, what a chore, what a horrible burden to put on the person who's got the bad time where everybody, they needed help. Well, now they got to need help, and now they need a secretary and an extra week to say thank you to everybody. Sorry, I'm also monitoring where that puppy's going now. Cash App is, I don't know, it's just another PayPal. Indiegogo and Kickstarter are both for projects. Indiegogo is more for like your bands and your writers and your content creators, where for projects, I need a camera. We're trying to film this video. I need to get to an event. Indiegogo is for that. Kickstarter is more for like, I want to build a new product. I think a new set of lights would be cool. I just need to get an engineer and the supply chain, and we need $1 million to start this up. So Kickstarter is more project based, and those are more product based, but both of those are more project based. Like, here's the thing, and we're going to let you do. And then again, you can follow up. You can say thanks. I'm on my 37th project on Indiegogo, something like 4 or 5 on Kickstarter, because I don't use Kickstarter as much. I don't make as many products as I fund campaigns as we do on Indiegogo. But each one of those now, I can go back to the ones, for example, that we're doing the cards and stuff, and or the batches in the past, and say, hey, we're doing another patch thing. We're trying to get this sewing machine. Just in case you're interested, we're doing this new one. So you've got that infrastructure in place. Patreon is a subscription service. When you get into PayPal, I don't know if Clover said this, but I have been the recipient a couple of times of substantial funding by individual contributions on PayPal. And it's almost like luckily it was at a time when I needed it and I'm capable of dealing with it. But imagine if everyone sent you $1 million, $20 at a time in an envelope that you had to open with scissors. You know what I'm saying? It's like, thank you, but holy moly, I don't know if this is even possible. And between fees and having a PayPal account that now has 1 billion entries, if it's any kind of income, you have to pay taxes on it. And it's just, so the value that a campaign type of structure can give you is this is one of the biggest kernels of info I can give you. And I'm giving it to everybody, even though I'm only really talking to Second Amendment activists out there. The systems give you the ability for taxes and for your sanity and for the ability to keep track of the people that are actually participating, a millionfold. Their value is immense. So going back to what Jeff said about paying for the system, that's what you're paying for, is the ability to actually compartmentalize or deal with. Again, having 1,000 people give you $5 is awesome, until you think about what a PayPal account looks like with 1,000 individual entries that say, there's essentially 3 entries for everything. If you've ever used PayPal for any length of time, there's different entries for different stuff. So when you pull reports and do taxes and stuff, holy moly, good luck trying to find an accountant to deal with 1,000 $5 entries through a PayPal. Unless I'm just really bad at this, and I could be, that's a massive, I don't want to say burden, but if you're trying to, let's say, deal with an issue, my dog's sick, something way worse, and people are trying to help out. Okay, it happened, I'm over, dealing with insurance, dealing with this and that, dealing with the medications and that. And now what happened to Patreon? Wait, what happened to PayPal? And what if you're using PayPal to do other things? I need that one entry amongst 1,000. It just gets really difficult. And people that use their phones, I can't even imagine. I'm using a computer with a screen that goes up and down. I don't know if I'm just bragging on that too much, but there's intricacies to all of these. So each of them have their value, each of them have their focus, and they each are going to draw and attract a different audience. But I don't know, it's probably worth exploring them for the different things you're doing. None of them is perfect for everything. I use the different platforms for projects, but I still have a Patreon. I could probably facilitate everything through a Patreon. I think what Clover was saying there towards the end, you don't want to think of Patreon for a project, because you'd have to kind of rebrand Patreon all the time. But potentially, like when I was doing remember when I was doing the Loophole tour? I don't know, I think you were around then. Yeah, you were. I did the $75 level on Patreon, and that was $25 for shipping and $50 that we would leave at the gun shops.
Mhm.
So turns out you go broke doing that because I didn't save anything for taxes or anything, and I just transferred a bunch of money through Patreon
Right.
to gun shops.
Yep.
But that was a perk that lasted for a while, and then I turned the perk off. So essentially, I had like a what do you call it, like a temporary project within Patreon, and it did facilitate. It allowed me to have everybody's addresses, like Clover was saying, and I could send everybody their stuff. I just was learning, so I did it like in a dumb way. Like I said, I'm not an accountant or a business major. So he wanted to get down. Can you hear that they're over there having a big argument?
Oh,
They're
yeah.
really just fighting over a toy, but that's all he wanted to get down for. So I'm still reading his weird burrito signals. Okay, so we'll try to cannonball, or what's the word, rapid fire through these. Plus we got rapid fire radio starting up here at some point. Little Rascals is what I was looking for before. Thanks, Tony, for that. Going to start a show, pay-per-view show. I think that's totally appropriate, right? Like, think about ways to incorporate that into your projects. Tony's on his way back from Phoenix, and again, there's lots of good stuff that's being done out there. Once we normalize the idea that a giant community of people can pretty effectively financially support really interesting the evolution of stuff, right? That's how we evolve stuff. So there's once we normalize and create those structures, will the industry take over Patreon? Question mark. Like, you know what I mean? There's places for this to go other than just funding some projects. Hey, Mr. Guy over there, could you shut up? So
he was just saying how much he liked Tony. That's all.
He's standing there.
He heard you
got
say
the
Tony.
toy in between them. Mello's just looking at him, being totally quiet, letting him get himself into trouble, and he's just yelling his face off at her, trying to get her to pick up the toy, and she knows what's going on. I'm not saying she set that up, but she just set that up.
Yeah.
So Jeff jumped over to the main Gear Report channel. Or wait, this is Gear Report Firearms. I think there's another Gear Report Gear or something.
Right.
I feel bad when Patreon folks send me stuff. I'm not supporting folks to get stuff. Well, one, that's okay. You don't have to feel happy every time something comes in the mail, but there is that back and forth. And I think there is something to, when you understand it from scouts and stuff. I know Jeff was in scouts. There's something to be said for the just the token that, I was part of that hike, or I was part of that event, or, I was part of that yearly thing or whatever. Some of the patch stuff, people may not be into putting patches on their bags. I hardly ever put patches on bags. I do some real subtle stuff, but I don't put patches on stuff. I never put patches on me. Like, I don't wear patches ever. I don't have them on my hats or any kind of jackets or anything like that. I'll put them on my visor, or what do you call that thing? The headliner of my vehicles, essentially. Or, in front of me, I used to put them on my cubicles and stuff. So now I got them on whatever my whiteboard is in front of me here. So I look at them and I appreciate them, but most of the patches that I appreciate the most are, ones that commemorate an event. And when you look at them, it's just like grandma looking at her spoons. Oh, I remember that vacation, or I remember that, visit from so-and-so where they brought me this spoon. It's just that thing that lets your brain, as you get older, you need these cues, right? So it's just that thing that lets you go, oh yeah, I got this from so-and-so. This is the time that they did the whatever. And hopefully some of those cards, as we did those cards over the years, think of some of the channels that were involved in the card deck in 2015, and think of where they were in 2015 and where they are today. I like to think that the participation in those projects, having participatory stuff where people realize there's a community and that they are allowed to work together, and there's ways that you can, interact with audiences more than just drop shit for them to look at. There's a lot of value in that, and hopefully the people that own some of those cards, have those decks or some of the other projects that we've been involved in, the patch batches, and they think of those as not just commodities. Like, oh, if I ever need to wear a patch that looks like the Kool-Aid guy, I've got one. But hopefully they look at that and go, wow, that was a time when a bunch of people were brought together to at least acknowledge each other, if not create some relationships and understand some things, and I was able to be part of that. And those are those tokens or whatever. And obviously there's different levels and there's different scales, but then there's also something to the, like the buttons from Wanamaker. I value those a lot, even when I don't get to go to the show, because it's a visual indication. It's a physical indication, I guess, of the progress of time and how many of those shows are being laid down. Every time one of those shows happens, that many people in the community come together, peacefully assemble, participate in commerce with a focus on Second Amendment. And I know that there's people like the Gun Channels crew that are growing their abilities and their talents and their resources or whatever. They're like, what am I trying to say? They're meeting more and more people out there. They're getting used to the whole thing. Every time one of those shows happens, and those buttons are a way to think of that, or like the SHOT Show patches that say SHOT Show every year. Those are some neat things. So that part of Patreon is one of the things that we would, I hope I'm getting across, that, like, again, dropping a super chat, dropping a $5 PayPal is neat, but it's either a burden, like it's actually a kind of a difficult pain in the ass to follow up on somebody who drops $5 if you do want to say thank you. But it's relatively simple to come up with a newsletter or some kind of a thank you or some sort of an update or some sort of a progress report, or maybe even like a weekly, monthly comic that you're sending out to your Patreons in the mail. And there's something to that. Getting something in the mail is a thing. It's a physical thing. So I get that it's not some people's main drive, but there's a lot of resource there. There's a lot of potential there. I don't know if I didn't do a good job of wrapping that up quickly, but I thought that was a big one. I don't know if you want to add to that at all.
You're fine. I mean, at some point, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. Like, I don't expect anything, but at some point you just have to appreciate if you get something. Like, appreciate the fact that you're appreciated. If that makes sense. So, when I do get something, I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I know in the back of my mind, like, they didn't have to send that or they didn't have to do that, but still, it's appreciated.
Let's see. And then I do feel bad when it's something that's expensive, or when somebody sends me something for like $7 shipping, and I know they could have done it for $4, but that's because I'm super cheap. That was the question we already addressed from Susan. Hopefully we addressed that. If we didn't, and if you're listening to this and you're thinking, but I still have a question about that, feel free to leave a comment in either of our channels on wherever you're finding this. Again, we're simulcasting to 3 different YouTube channels. The main gun website's one, the YouTuber Academy, or excuse me, the GunTuber Academy, and then the Daily Gun Show channel. So feel free to comment on one or any of them, and we'll see those and address it in a future show. Oh, did I just drop a comment? Then Solus is saying, I've been told I should start a GoFundMe. Sorry, I've got the hiccups. I've been told I should start a GoFundMe or something because I need a total hip replacement. My thoughts are, I'm a nobody. Why would people want to give me money? Well, I guess there's different ambitions for crowdfunding and for, well, we're talking crowdfunding. So for crowdfunding, but even for subscription model stuff, or even for just the super chat, like the let's all have fun, or maybe something like the pay-per-view type of event. So there's definitely different things there. But let's say you don't want to do a GoFundMe, maybe hook up, what is it? What's the one that lets you do the $2 to watch? Is that Locals?
It's Locals, yeah.
So if you set up a Locals and you encourage people to go over there and drop $1 or something to be able to participate, and then maybe you, I don't know, do something, bring some people in and say, hey, will you show up to my private show? I'm trying to raise funds for my hip or something. And maybe you don't raise the funds for your hip in one thing. Maybe you turn that into a Saturday party, and it's just like any party that's got a $5 cover, and people know that, hey, if I want to be part of it, there's a $5 cover. I don't think there's too many people that don't understand the concept of capitalism like that. So YouTube doesn't have that option that I'm aware of. There's no way to do like a live show just for your channel members, which seems dumb. They're leaving money on the table, but they don't have that. I guess they have ways that you can make it where only the channel members can comment, maybe. But anyway, so there's.
Well, I think we've covered, and I think we've covered too, as far as this question goes. I think we've covered it too multiple times so far, that people give money for a myriad of different reasons. So getting hung up on why would people give me money is it's silly in a way, because it's hard to. I mean, there's people out there that I I will never understand why they give money. They have their own personal beliefs or whatever the case may be. Maybe they're trying to, you know, karma or atone for a sin, or who knows, right? What their reason for giving money is. But if you don't have a mechanism out there, who knows? And as far as the GoFundMe's and the especially the medical needs and the needs of real people, I know for a fact there are people that all they do is, I mean, they scan those sites, and donate to people in need. I mean, there's something that resonates. Maybe that happened in their life before. They're like, okay, this happened
Or
to
they
me 20 years ago, and oh, cool. This, not that the problem the person has is cool, but it's cool that there's a commonality between that person and maybe their experience in life, and so they donate some money to the cause. That
maybe
is the
they've
thing.
been the recipient. I can't tell you. One of the reasons I
This is true.
champion this
Yeah.
is because I've
Yeah.
been the recipient of 1,000 people throwing $5 at you, and that changes things, right? It changes things. So when you've got, when you've seen that happen, and you understand that I've got $5, and this person's from where I'm from, like you're saying, or I've had that ache, and I understand that that's frustrating. So here's $5, and again, it may not fund it, but sometimes it does, and you never know until you try it, type of thing. And I guess the other side of that is, there's no other side of that. There's lots of other sides to that. We're 2 hours in. The last one, I guess, that I had starred was that G23 was saying Thunder on the Prairie, which is a shooting event. It's it's a minor, like kind of a fun competition, just for nothing real serious, but it's mostly just to get together in Nebraska. I don't remember where, but in Nebraska, it'll be the second one. So the first annual, I think is the way you have to say it, June 3rd and 4th. So if you're interested in attending, fun get together, shoot, where people bring their stuff, and I think they're even having some manufacturers show up. Nothing super fancy, not sponsored by a gun shop or any kind of a range or even an organization, just some people that are active members of community, people that run some channels. Defense Dad has a couple of different channels. Travis P11 has a channel that's been on for a while with a show that he, again, hosts on a regular Saturday morning, bringing people together for, I don't know, 5 more years now. I don't even know what episode. I don't get up on Saturday morning early enough to listen to the show often, but definitely tying a bunch of people together from back in the day. And I think there's a lot of value to that goes unrecognized, in that when you have a show that's long going or long standing, you've got people that are going to be there because for whatever reason it works into their schedule. It's, they can listen to it at work or on a commute or something. So they're just going to be able to be long term, and they appreciate it. So they continue to tune in, type of thing, and they participate. So they're there. And then all the people that in different versions of that aren't able to communicate or don't show up all the time but are still around intermittently, you've got those people that are long term hanging out with people that are just finding it for the first time. So you keep that continuity, I think is the word, of community or of culture. And again, that's the kind of stuff that may be like a tradition in a tavern. We're going to cut your tie off, or if you hit a bullseye, you get a free beer. The like traditions that can happen. The shows like Travis, like G23, those kind of shows that are participatory and roundtable based, really provide a continued, I think that's the word, continuity in the community that goes unrecognized often, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess we're going to wrap this one up at 2 hours. There's your 90-minute show. The only 2-hour, 90-minute show on the internet every week dedicated to content creators who are focused on what our Second Amendment protects. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have more questions about crowdfunding or funding your projects in general in different strategies in different ways, feel free to let us know at any of our contact information or any ways I should have put me on this side the whole time. Looked like you were pointing your gun at me. Sorry about that. If that was freaking anybody out, I just noticed it right now. Clover, why don't you wrap it up?
First of all, it's a revolver. It's obviously a single action, and the hammer's not back.
No, I know, but it still might have freaked people out.
And I'm not Alec Baldwin, so it's all good, man.
Maybe I'll say that we did have a bunch of votes, 23 votes in the poll over on the big channel. How interested are you in crowdfunding? 39%. It went in order that we asked them. 39%. The winner was very. I already have crowdfunded.
Nice.
35% say somewhat. I'd like to try it. 22% not interested or disinterested, just ambivalent. No opinion of it, and just the one vote for being a communist. So thanks for everybody participating in the poll. Go ahead.
By the way, real quick, you were talking about the avatars. Did you realize that at that time you had two pointing at me? I only had one pointing at you.
I was covering you. That one dude is definitely oblique, and that other one is over your shoulder, dude.
Okay.
We just had each other 6 the whole time.
Okay.
We were good to go. And now I still got the guy with the shotgun. He's kind of pointing at you, but it's a shotgun. I don't think can the flood even be affected by a shotgun. You just absorb the shotgun.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It just becomes reloading fodder for you.
It's a power up. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, you wrap it up, and then we'll be back next week.
Oh, man, it's good conversation as always. I don't have a whole lot to talk about or say. I'll echo, reach out either on the, probably on the main CloverTech channel, but you can hit the About section on GunTuber Academy, and that'll get you there. CloverTech.com will get you there. If you got more questions or want to talk, specifics about the whole content creator thing, I got as a subtitle down there. Content creation is supposed to be hard. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Everybody would have 10 million subscribers and blah, 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 blah. So there's nothing worthwhile. There's nothing doing that's worth doing is going to be easy, right? So that's it.
Well, suckers, the whole point of this one was to butter you up so that I could plug my current Indiegogo campaign. So we've got a campaign going for a sewing machine. Alan Anchor is a graphic design company that is at the moment in California, and they have the sewing machine robot that can make patches and hats and do embroidery on different things and whatnot. It's a fairly common machine. They've had it for not too long, and for some reason they must have fell down and bumped their head. They're selling it, and their neighbor wants to buy it because they're a hat place, and they were offering it to me if I can grab it before they have to get rid of it. And that's what I'm trying to do, is raise funds to buy their sewing machine robot. I'm going to head over while it's still in use and operation and get trained up on it. Let me see how they work it. Then we'll take it apart, shove it in the van, smuggle it over here to Arizona, set it back up, and start to work on it. So I've been embroidering stuff for a long time. I had a little consumer version of an embroidery machine, and I brought it up to like 10 million threads or sews or whatever it is, and it just wore the thing out. I repaired it so many times that it literally just wore the parts out to where it would have cost too much to put it back together anymore. And that's been super frustrating. So I really like to prototype stuff and to kind of thrash stuff out before sending it off to a big run, and with colors and designs and things like that. And also just being able to do one-offs for other folks out there and play around with it. The machine I had was one color. So that means that it just had one needle, and it was a capable machine. I got to where I could do pretty good work with it, but it was just very time consuming. You do one color, then the next color, then the next color. So this one is a 15 color. It's a much more capable robot with all kinds of fanciness to it. It's thousands and thousands of dollars is the problem. So I'm trying to raise $7,000. That turns out to be 140 people getting in on it. Right now we're at 31, so it's definitely still a possibility. We have about a week left. It's going to end on Friday or Saturday. I don't know. It ends on the 27th. I forget. I think it ends at the end of the month, and 7 days from now. And we're trying to get the word out. So if you're interested in being part of it, I actually am going to be adding some perks. I'm trying to juggle too many things, and I needed to get this thing started on a time frame because they had a time frame for when they needed to sell the robot. So I started the project in non-ideal circumstances. So I am still working on the project itself. If somebody's out there as a Second Amendment advocate and would like to see some behind the scenes while the project is running, if you're a gun person, you can pay me. If you're a Second Amendment advocate, let's find a time and jump in when I'm working on it, and you can see what it's like to work on an actively running project. if you would like to help get the word out, I'm going to be playing with the referral codes thing, and I'm going to be sending some of those out. We'll be giving away some extra stuff like your custom patches, custom designs for whoever sends in people to us. So we'll be sending out some custom links. So if you'd like a custom link to get in on that, let me know. So we're going to have some fun with it for the next week while it's running as a project, but then hopefully we'll raise enough funds to get this robot and then start playing with some custom patches again. Now, here's the deal. It's already funded to 22%, and we have a place on here that kind of shows the goals. So we've already reached the first goal, which was to get a run of patches made. So everybody who participates is going to get some patches from the machine, but you'll also get a run of real patches, PVC patches, and we're going to do a dog design. So it'll be a design based off of our puppies. So then we've already reached the second hurdle where we can replace that old machine. The one we used to have costs about $1,000. So we've already reached the point where we can replace that other machine and get the new patches. So we will have a machine at the end of this project, but whether or not it's the big fancy machine from Allen Anchor is yet to be determined. So at this point, it's super cool. It's a successful project. No matter what, we'll be able to replace the old machine, and we'll be able to make patches one color at a time if it stopped right now. But hopefully it'll keep going for the rest of the week. We'll be asking people to help us get the word out about it, and we'll be having some fun with that. And yeah, that's the project. I just dropped a link out there for it. If you're interested in participating, please do. If you're interested in sharing it, really appreciate that. All right, with that, we'll quit talking about it. I'll have a quick little commercial thing at the end here that our friend Foss made. If you're interested in making a cool video, let me know. It helps a lot to have different ways to get the word out about it. All right, thanks everybody for being patient with us. If you enjoy these, go over to Clover Tax Patreon and join up. If you're digging our stuff, then we've got a Patreon as well.